Good morning. Hello. A very good morning to all of you who are in. I see over there. We have a new audience today. I don't believe I've seen you before. Agnes Freya. I think this is the first time I saw you here. But thank you so much for. No, I'm not telling a story. I'm more of a reader. I read an existing book. I don't really tell stories, but currently we are reading Kazuo Ishiguro's Nocturnes, which is a five short stories of music and nightfall. So we are currently on chapter 4, which is aptly called Nocturne, and we are going to finish up the rest of the two chapters today, I think, because the last time chapter 3 was a little bit short, and if I continue reading chapter 4, it will went beyond the 2 hours timeline that I set for myself. So I would definitely prefer to keep it at 2 hours or maybe 2 hours and a half or so, something like that. So today we are finishing up Kazuo Ishiguro's Nocturnes, the last two chapters called Nocturne and Cellist. So they shouldn't take more than 3 hours. Not more than 2.5 hours really, but don't worry if you have something to attend to, you need to go, please go ahead and do what you need to do. You don't have to stick here and stay here just to listen to the entire story. I will always have the VOD ready, made available on both my Twitch account and also my YouTube account. I usually port all my VODs to YouTube, my YouTube as well. So you can give my YouTube a follow if you are. I would say listening from YouTube is easier than listening from Twitch, because Twitch is a bit. Mm, the buffering is a bit weird sometimes. So yeah, I think listening. Hello, Yuj. Yujung in the chat. Hello, nice to meet you. Good morning. I'm glad you made it. How's everyone's morning today? I woke up really early. I woke up way too early. I think I woke up around like 5 a.m. or something, but I lay in bed for like forever. I'm sure you guys understand that feeling. Like you woke up way too early and then you just like, god damn, like just I just want to stay in bed, forever. You get what I mean? Yeah. But also, we haven't cleared any of the savage last night, so we got some job to do today, basically. Um, yeah, but for now, we're gonna focus on the reading. I hope can. You guys will make it on time. The 6 viewers, hello. I'm not sure where you're from, but if you are from my home country, selamat datang and selamat pagi. But yeah, so what to those who are new to my channel, who are in my Twitch right now, um, what I do on Noodibles is a play on word, uh, on Audible, which is basically like you listen to a book instead of reading a book. So what I do is I read a book to you guys, a book of my choice, because I'm selfish like that. Hello there, Alyssa Sharp Eyes. Hello, good morning. Thank you for attending. Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Yeah. So I read a book of my choice. Hello, good morning, Tochiet. Yeah. So I read a book of my choice. Currently, I am kind of like introducing Kazuo Ishiguro to my audience. He's one of my favorite author. But after this, I'm going to read. I'm still thinking what to read. At first, I was thinking I'm gonna read another author's book, but I think I might just consider continuing reading from my Kazuo Ishiguro collection because he's such a good writer and I really want to expose his writing to you guys. Have you heard of the movie Never Let Me Go? That movie is based on the book that's written by Kazuo Ishiguro. So I'm thinking maybe I should read that book, and if you guys have watched the movie, then you guys can make some comparison, like what's between the movie and the book. Because I feel the book is much inferior. Sorry, superior, not inferior. Be- but you can't really compare a book with um, a movie sometimes because the idea is there, but in a book you can have so much information contained in it that a movie unnecessarily that they can tell all of the story, you know what I mean? So yeah. Oh, there you go. Yijo. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you so much. Everyone's on time today. Alright. Usually I make a little like, a little talk on like about 10, 11 minutes before I start reading. Hope you guys don't mind. You guys can tell me about your day, your morning. Like, where you guys from? What time is it there? Is it a good evening? Is it a good morning? Or is it a good afternoon? Let me know. Let me know. So, yeah. I've been a bit like tired lately. Like, not tired necessarily, like more like lethargic. So I really wanted to rest a lot. And yeah. And if you guys hear like a vacuuming sound or something in the background, yeah, we are cleaning the house a little bit, like once a week house cleaning session, while I'm in my room locked up with my cat, who is deadly afraid of vacuum, obviously. How are you guys doing? Oh my God, Agnes, Canada, isn't it late for you right now? Jesus. Why are you playing? Wait, if you don't mind me asking, why are you playing on the Japan server when you're in Canada? Why aren't you on the NA server? I'm just curious. 8 p.m. 8 p.m. is not too bad. 8 p.m. Hmm. I think I roughly know where you are, but I'm not gonna dox you. Oh my God, Adam. Hey, always nice to see you. Always love to see Adam. You lazy? Have you had your dinner yet, Agnes? Oh, thank you for coming, Arum. Make sure to have your dinner. Don't skip dinner. But I don't know. I shouldn't be telling people how to control their own diet because I have absolutely dog shit diet myself. Like I would eat and then I don't eat. And if I could make a choice, which I couldn't at this moment, I would eat one meal a day. You know, the whole intermittent fasting thing? Yeah, that's what I was doing for a while. Lost a bunch of weight for it. Yeah. But yeah, it works. But yeah. I mean, just control your portion, really, if you want to lose weight. Why am I going into this topic right now? I'm like stupid. Anyway, okay, get your books out, boys and girls. We are about to start in about 1 minute time. Once again, I'm gonna repeat. For those who are here for the first time, we are reading a book called Nocturnes, which is a short story compilation by Kazuo Ishiguro. We are finishing up the last two chapters of Nocturnes, which is called Nocturne and Cellists. So I hope you all will enjoy it. I absolutely love Kazuo Ishiguro, and I hope that y'all will enjoy his writing as much as I enjoy reading them out loud to all of you. I'm gonna take a breather, take a sip of tea, and we shall start reading. We are reading Nocturnes by Kazuo Ishiguro, Chapter 4, Nocturne, page 127. Until 2 days ago, Lindy Gardner was my next door neighbor. Okay, you're thinking, if Lindy Gardner was my neighbor, that probably means I live in the Beverly Hills, a movie producer, maybe, or an actor, or a musician. Well, I'm a musician, alright. But though I've played behind one or two performers you'll have heard of, I'm not what you would call a big league. My manager, Bradley Stevenson, who is in his way, has been a good friend over the years, maintains that I have it in me to be in the big league. Not just big league session player, but a big league headliner. It's not true saxophonists don't become headliners anymore, he says, and repeats his list of names. Marcus Lightfoot, Silvio Tarantini. They're all jazz players, he says. But only in my innermost dreams that I am still a jazz player. In the real world, when I don't have my face entirely wrapped in the bandages the way I do now, I'm just a jobbing tenor man in reasonable demand for studio work, or when a band lost their regular guy. If it's pop they want, it's pop I play. R&B? Fine. Car commercials? The walk-on theme for a talk show? I'll do it. I'm a jazz player these days only when I'm inside my cubicle. I prefer to play in my living room, but our apartment's so cheaply made, the neighbors would start complaining all the way down the hall. So what I've done is convert our smallest room into a rehearsal room. It's no more than a closet, really. You can get an office chair in there, and that's it. But I've made it soundproof with foam and egg trays and old padded envelopes my manager Bradley sent around from his office. Helen, my wife, when she used to live with me, she would see me going in there with my sacks and she would laugh and say it was like I was going to the toilet. And sometimes that's how it felt. That is to say, it was like I was sitting in the dim, airless cubicle while taking care of personal business no one else would ever care to come across. You have guessed by now, Lindy Gardner never lived next to this apartment I'm talking about. Neither was she one of the neighbors who banged on the door whenever I played outside the cubicle. When I say she was my neighbor, I meant something else. And I'm going to explain this right now. Until 2 days ago, Lindy was in the next room here at this swanky hotel, and like me, had her face encased in bandages. Lindy, of course, has a big, comfortable house nearby and hired help, so Dr. Boris let her go home. In fact, from a strictly medical point of view, she could probably have gone much sooner. But there were clearly other factors. For one, it wouldn't be so easy for her to hide from the cameras and gossip columnists back in her own house. What's more, my hunch is that Dr. Boris' stellar reputation is based on procedures that aren't 100% legal. And that's why he hides his patients up here in this hush-hush floor of the hotel, cut off from all regular staff and guests, with instructions to leave our rooms only when absolutely necessary. You could see the past all the crepe and spot stars up here once a week, then in a month at the Chateau Marmont. So how does someone like me get to be here among these stars and millionaires, having my face altered by the top man in town. I guess it started with my manager, Bradley, who isn't so big league himself and doesn't look any more like Clooney than I do. He first mentioned it a few years ago, in a jokey sort of way, then seemed to get more serious each time he brought it up. What he was saying in a nutshell was that I was ugly, and that is what was keeping me from the big league. Look at Marcus Lightfoot, he said. Look at Chris Bogosky or Tarantini. Do any of them have a signature sound the way you do? No. Do they have your tenderness, your vision? Do they even have half of your technique? No. But they look right. So doors keep opening for them. But what about Billy Fogel? I said. He's ugly as hell and he's doing fine. Billy's ugly, alright, but he's a sexy, bad, ugly guy. You know, Steve, you are, well, you're a dull, loser ugly. The wrong kind of ugly, you know? Listen, have you ever considered having a little work done? Of surgical nature, I mean? I went home and repeated this all to Helen because I thought she would find it as funny as I did. At first, sure enough, we had a lot of laughs at Bradley's expense. Then Helen came over and put her arms around me and told me that for her, at least, I was the most handsome guy in the universe. Then she kind of took a step back and went quiet. When I asked her what was wrong, she said nothing was wrong. Then she said perhaps, just perhaps, Bradley had a point. Maybe I should consider having a little work done. Good morning, Cardinal Daniel. Thank you for dropping by. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. No need to look at me like that, she yelled back. Everyone's doing it. And you have a professional reason. Guy wants to be a fancy chauffeur. He goes and buy a fancy car. It's no different with you. But at that stage, I gave the idea no further thought, even if I was beginning to accept this notion that I was indeed the loser ugly. For one thing, I didn't have the money. In fact, the very moment Helen was talking about fancy chauffeurs, we were $9,500 in debt. This was characteristic of Helen, a fine person in many ways, but this ability to forget completely the true state of our finances and start dreaming up major new spending opportunities, this was very Helen. Money aside, I didn't like the idea of someone cutting me up. I'm not so good with that kind of thing. One time early in my relationship with Helen, she invited me to go running with her. It was a crisp winter's morning and I've never been much of a jogger, but I was taken by her and anxious to impress. So there, we were running around the park and I was doing fine keeping up with her when suddenly my shoe hit something very hard jutting out of the ground and I could feel a pain in my foot, which wasn't so bad, but when I took off my sneaker and sock, I saw the nail on my big toe rearing up from the flesh like it was doing a Hitler-style salute. I got nauseous and fainted. That's the way I am. So you see, I wasn't wild about the face surgery. Then, naturally, there was a principle of the thing. Okay, I've told you before, I'm no stickler for artistic integrity. I play every kind of bubble gum for the pay. But this proposition was of another order. And I did have some pride left. Bradley was right about one thing. I was twice as talented as most other people in this town. But it seemed that it didn't count much for these days. Because it has to do with image, marketability, being in magazines and on TV shows about parties and who you ate lunch with. It all made me sick. I was a musician. Why should I join in this game? Why couldn't I just play my music the best way I knew and keep getting better, if only in my cubicle, and maybe someday, just maybe, genuine music lovers would hear me and appreciate what I was doing. What did I want with a plastic surgeon? At first, Helen seemed to see it my way, and the topic didn't come up again for some time. That is, not until she phoned from Seattle to say she was leaving me and moving in with Chris Pendergast, a guy she had known since high school and now owned a string of successful diners across Washington. I had met this Pendergast a few times over the years. He had even come to dinner once, but I never suspected a thing. All that soundproofing in that cupboard of yours, Bradley said at the time. It works both ways. I suppose he had a point. But I don't want to dwell on Helen and Pendergast, except to explain their part in getting me where I am now. Maybe you are thinking, I drove up to the coast, confronted a happy couple, and a plastic surgery became necessary following a manly altercation with my rival. Romantic, but no, that's not the way it happened. What happened was that a few weeks after her phone call, Helen came back to the apartment to organize moving out her belongings. She looked sad walking around the place where, after all, we had some happy times. I kept thinking she was about to cry, but she didn't, and just went on putting all her things into a neat pile. Someone would be along to pick them up in a day or two, she said. Then, as I was on my way to my cubicle, tenner in my hand, she looked up and said, Steve, please don't go into that place again. We need to talk. Talk about what? Steve, for God's sake. So I put the sacks away back in its case and went into our little kitchen and sat down at the table facing one another. Then she put it on me. There was no going back on her decision. She was happy with Prendergast, for whom she had carried a torch since school. She felt bad about leaving me, especially at a time when my career wasn't going so good. So she had thought things over and talked with her new guy, and he too felt bad about me. Apparently, what he had said was, It's just too bad Steve has to pay the price for all of our happiness. So here was the deal. Prendergast was willing to pay for me to have my face fixed by the best surgeon in town. It's true, she said. When I looked back at her blankly, he means it. No expense spared. All the hospital bills, recuperation, everything, the best surgeon in town. Once my face was fixed, there would be nothing holding me back, she said. I'll go right to the top. How could I fail with the talent I have? Steve, why are you looking at me like that? This is a great offer, and God knows if he'll still be willing in 6 months. Say yes right now and do yourself a big favor. It's just a few weeks of discomfort, then whoosh, Jupiter and beyond. 15 minutes later, on her way out, she said in much a sterner tone, So what is it you saying? That you're happy playing in that little closet for the rest of your life? That you love being this big a loser? And with that, she left. The next day I went to Bradley's office to see if he had anything for me, and I happened to mention what had occurred, expecting us to laugh about it. But he didn't laugh at all. This guy's rich, and he's willing to get you a top surgeon? Maybe he'll get you Crespo, or even Boris. So I now have Bradley too, telling me how I had to take this opportunity, how if I didn't I'll be a loser all my life. I left his office pretty angry, but he phoned later the same afternoon and kept on about it. If it was the call itself holding me back, he said. It was the blow to my pride involved in picking up a phone and saying to Helen, Yes, please, I want to do it. Please get your boyfriend to sign that big check if that's what's holding me up. Then he, Bradley, was happy to do all the negotiations on my behalf. I was told to go sit on a tall spike and hung up. But then, He called again an hour later. He told me that he had now figured it all out, and I was a fool not to have done so myself. Helen's got this carefully planned. Consider her position. She loves you. But looks wise, well, you are an embarrassment when you are seen in public. You're no turn on. She wants you to do something about it, but you refuse. So what's she to do? Well, her next move is magnificent, full of subtlety. As a professional manager, I have to admire it. She goes off with this guy. Okay, maybe she's always had the hots for him, but really, she doesn't love him at all. She gets the guy to pay for your face. Once you're all healed up, she comes back and you're good looking. She's hungry for your body. She can't wait to be seen with you in restaurants. I stop him right here to point out that though over the years I had become accustomed to the depths to which he could sink when persuading me to do something to his professional advantage. This latest ploy was somewhere so far down in the pits it was no place a light can penetrate and where steaming horseshit would freeze in seconds. And on to the subject of horseshit, I told him. While I understood how he, on account of his nature, couldn't help shoveling the stuff all the time, it would still be sound strategy on his part to come up with the sort of that had at least a chance of taking me in for a minute or two. Then I hung up on him. Again. For the next few weeks, work seemed scarcer than ever, and each time I called Bradley to see if he had anything, he would say something like, "It's hard to help a guy who won't help himself." In the end, I began considering the whole matter more pragmatically. I couldn't get away from the fact that I needed to eat, and if going through with this meant that eventually a lot more people got to hear my music, was that such a bad result? And what about my plans to lead my own band one day? How was that ever going to happen? Finally, maybe 6 weeks after Helen came out with the offer, I mentioned casually to Bradley that I was thinking it over again. That was all he needed. He was off, making phone calls and arrangements, shouting a lot of getting excited. To give him his due, he was true to his word. He did all the go-between stuff, so I didn't have to have a single humiliating conversation with Helen, let alone with Prendergast. At times, Bradley even managed to create the illusion he was negotiating a deal for me, that it was me who had something to sell. Even so, I was having doubts several times each day. When it happened suddenly. Bradley called to say Dr. Boris had a last minute cancellation and I had to get myself to a particular address by 3:30 that same afternoon with all my bags packed. Maybe I had final jitters at that point because I remember Bradley yelling down on the phone at me to pull myself together that he was coming to get me himself, and then I was driven up winding roads to a big house in the Hollywood Hills and put under anesthetic, just like the character in Raymond Chandler's story. After a couple of days, I was brought down here to this Beverly Hills hotel with a back entrance under cover of dark and wheeled down this corridor so exclusive we are sealed off entirely from all the regular life of the hotel. The first week, my face was painful and the anesthetic in my system made me nauseous. I had to sleep propped up on pillows, which meant I didn't sleep much at all, and because my nurse insisted on keeping the room dark at all times, I lost sense of what hour of the day it was. Even so, I didn't feel at all that bad. In fact, I felt exhilarated and optimistic. I felt complete confidence in Dr. Boris, who was, after all, a guy in whose hands movie stars place their entire careers on. What's more, I knew that with me, he had completed his masterpiece, that on seeing my loser's face, he had felt his deepest ambitions stir, remembered why he had chosen his vocation in the first place, and put everything into it and more. When the bandages came off, I could look forward to a cleanly chiseled face, slightly brutal, yet full of nuance. A guy, with his reputation after all, would have thought through carefully the requirements of a serious jazz musician, and not confuse them with, say, those of a TV anchorman. He may even put in something to give me that vaguely haunted quality, kind of like young De Niro or like Chet Baker before the drugs ravaged him. I thought about the albums I would make, the lineups I would hire to back me up. I felt triumphant and couldn't believe I had ever hesitated about the move. Then came the second week, when the effect of the drugs wore off and I felt depressed, lonely, and cheap. My nurse, Gracie, now let a little more light into the room, though she kept the blinds at least halfway down, and I was allowed to walk about the room in my dressing gown. So I put one CD after another and into the Bang and Olufsen, and went around and round the carpet, now and then stopping in front of the dressing table mirror to inspect the weird bandage monster gazing back through the peephole eyes. It was during this phase that Gracie told me that Lindy Gardner was next door. Had she brought this news in my earlier euphoric phase, I would have greeted it with delight. I might even have taken it as the first indicator of the glamorous life I was now headed for. Coming down it did, though, just as I was falling into my throe. The news filled me with such disgust it set off another bout of nausea. If you are one of Lindy's many admirers, I apologize for what's coming up here. But the fact was that at that moment, if there was one figure who epitomized for me everything that was shallow and sickening about the world, it was Lindy Gardner. A person with negligible talent. Okay, let's face it, she demonstrated that she cannot act, and she doesn't even pretend to have musical ability, but who has managed all the same to become famous, fought over by TV networks and glossy magazines who can't get enough of her smiling features. I went past a bookstore earlier this year and saw a sneaking line and wondered if someone like Stephen King was around, and here it turns out to be Lindy signing copies of her latest ghosted autobiography. And how was this all achieved? The usual way, of course. The right love affairs, the right marriages, the right divorces, all leading to the right magazine covers, the right talk shows, and stuff like that. Recent things she had on the air, I don't remember its name, where she gave advice about how to dress for the first big date after your divorce, and what to do if you suspect your husband is gay and all that. You hear people talk about her star quality, but the spell's easy enough to analyze. It's the sheer accumulation of TV appearances and glossy covers, all of the photos you have seen of her at the premieres and parties, her arms linked to legendary people, and now here she was, right next door, recovering just like me from a face job from Dr. Boris. No other news could have symbolized more perfectly the scale of my moral descent. The week before, I had been a jazz musician. Now, I was just another pathetic hustler getting my face fixed in a bid to crawl after Lindy Gardners of this world into the vacuous celebrity. The next few days, I tried to pass the time reading, but couldn't concentrate. Under the bandages, parts of my face throbbed awfully. Others itches like hell, and I had bouts of feeling hot and claustrophobic. I longed to play my sax, and the thought that it would be weeks until I could put my facial muscle under the kind of pressure made me more even despondent. In the end, I worked out the best way to get through the day was to alternate listening to CDs with spells of staring at sheet music. I had brought the folder of charts and lead, she- lead, lead sheets I worked with in my cubicle, and humming improvisations to myself. It was towards the end of the second week when I started to feel a little better both physically and mentally. My nurse handed me an envelope with a knowing smile, saying, "Now that ain't something you'll get every day." Inside, it was a page of hotel notepaper. And since I've got it right here beside me, I'll quote it just the way it came. "Gracie tells me you're getting weary of this high life. I am that way too. How about you come and visit? If 5 o'clock tonight isn't too early for cocktails? Dr. B says no alcohol. I expect the same for you. So looks like club soda's inferior. Curse him. See you at 5 or I'll be heartbroken. Lindy Gardner." Maybe it was because I'd become so bored of by this point, or that my mood was just on the up again, or that the thought of having a fellow prisoner to swap stories with was extremely appealing, or maybe I wasn't so immune myself to the glamour thing. In any case, when I read this, I felt a tingle of excitement, and I found myself telling Gracie to let Lindy know I would be over at 5. Lindy Gardner had on even more bandages than I did. I had at least been left an opening at the top, from which my hair sprang up like palms in a desert oasis. But Boris had encased the whole of Lindy's head so it was a contoured coconut shape, with slots only for eyes, nose, and mouth. What had happened to all that luxuriant blonde hair? I didn't know. Her voice, though, wasn't as constricted as you would expect, and I recognized it from the times I had seen her on the television. "So, how are you finding all this?" she asked. When I replied I wasn't finding it too bad, she said, "Steve." "May I call you Steve?" "I've heard all about you from Gracie." Oh, I hope she left out the bad part. "Well, I know that you are a musician, and a very promising one, too." "She told you that?" "Steve, you are tense. I want you to relax when you're with me. Some famous people, I know, they like the public to be tense around them, making them feel the more special, but I hate that. I want you I want you to treat me like I'm one of your regular friends." "What were you telling me? You were saying you don't mind this so much?" Her room was significantly bigger than mine, and this was just the lounge part of her suite. So, we were sitting facing each other on the matching white sofas. Between us was a low coffee table made of smoked glass, through which I could see a hunk of driftwood it rested on. Its surface was covered with shiny magazines and a fruit basket still in cellophane. Like me, she had the air conditioning up high. It gets warm in bandages, and the blinds low over the windows against the evening sun. A maid had just brought me a glass of water and a coffee, both with straws and bobbing in them, which is how everything has to be served here. Then had left the room. In answer to her question, I told her the toughest part for me was not being able to play my saxophone. "But you can see why Boris won't let you," she said. "Just imagine, you blow on the horn a day before you're ready. Pieces of your face will fly out all over the room." She seemed to find this pretty funny, waving her hand at me as though it was me that made that wisecrack, and she was saying, "Stop it, you're too much." I laughed with her and sipped some coffee through the straw. Then she began talking about various friends who had recently gone through cosmetic surgery, what they had reported, funny things that had happened to them. Every person she mentioned was a celebrity or else married to one. "So you're a sax player," she said, suddenly changing the subject. "You've made a good choice. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful instrument. You know, what I say to all young saxophone players, I'll tell them to listen to the old pros. I knew this saxophone player, up and coming like you, ever listen to these far out guys, Wayne Shorter and people like that. I said to him, you will learn more from the old pros. Might not have been so groundbreaking, I said to him, but those old pros knew how to do it. Steve, do you mind if I play you something to show you exactly what I'm talking about? No, I don't mind, but Mrs. Gardner, please call me Lindy. We are equals here. Well, okay, Lindy. I just wanted to say, I'm not so young. In fact, I'll be 39 next birthday. Oh, really? Well, that's still so young. But you're right. I thought you were much younger. With this exclusive mass Boris has given us, it's hard to tell, right? From what Gracie said, I thought you were this up and coming kid. And maybe your parents had paid for this surgery to get you off to a flying start. Sorry, my mistake. Gracie said I was up and coming. Don't be so hard on her. She said you were a musician, so I asked her for your name. And when I said I wasn't familiar with it, she said that's because he's up and coming. That's all it. Hey, but listen, what does it matter how old you are? You can always learn from the old pros. I want you to listen to this. I think you'll find it interesting. She went over to the cabinet and a moment later held up a CD. You'll appreciate this. The sax on this is so perfect. Her room had a Bang & Olufsen system just like mine, and soon the place is filled with lush strings. A few measures in, a sleepy Ben Websterish tenor broke through and proceeded to lead the orchestra. If you didn't know too much about these things, you could even have mistaken it for one of those Nelson Riddle intros for Sinatra. But the voice that eventually came on belonged to Tony Gardner. The song, I just remembered it, was something called Back in Culver City, a ballad that never quite made it and which no one plays much anymore. All the time Tony Gardner sang, the sax kept up with him, replying to him line by line. The whole thing was utterly predictable and way too sugary. After a while, though, I had stopped paying much attention to the music because there were Lindy in front of me, gone into a kind of dream, dancing slowly to the song. Her movements were easy and graceful. Clearly, the surgery hadn't extended to her body, and she had a shapely, slim figure. She was wearing something that was part nightgown, part cocktail dress. That's to say, it was at the same time vaguely medical yet glamorous. Also, I was trying to work something out. I had the distinct impression that Lindy had recently divorced Tony Gardner, but given I'm on the nation's worst when it comes to showbiz gossip, I began to think maybe I had got it wrong. Otherwise, why was she dancing this way, lost in music, evidently enjoying herself? Tony Gardner stopped singing a moment. The strings swelled into a bridge and the piano player started a solo. At this point, Lindy seemed to come back to the planet. She stopped swaying around, turned the music off with the remote, then came and sat down in front of me. Isn't it marvelous? You see what I mean? Yeah, that was beautiful, I said, not sure whether we were still talking about the saxophone. Your ears weren't deceiving you, by the way. I'm sorry? The singer. That was who you thought it was. Just because he's no longer my husband doesn't mean that I can't play his records, right? No, of course not. And that's a lovely saxophone. You see now why I wanted you to hear it. Yeah, it was beautiful. Steve, are there recordings of you somewhere? I mean, of your own playing? Sure. In fact, I have a few CDs with me next door. The next time you come, sweetie, I want you to bring them. I want to hear how you sound. Will you do that? Um, okay, if it's not gonna bore you. Oh no, it won't bore me. But I hope you don't think I'm nosy. Tony used to say that I'm nosy. I should just let people be, but I think he was just being snobby. A lot of famous people, they think they should be interested only in other famous people. I've never taken that way. I see everybody as a potential friend. Take Gracie, she's my friend, and all my staff at home. They are also my friends. You should see me at parties. Everyone else, they're talking to each other about their latest movies or whatever. I'm the one having conversation with the catering girl or the bartender. I don't think that's being nosy. Do you? No, I don't think that's nosy at all. But look, Mrs. Gardner, Lindy, please. Lindy, look, it's been fabulous being with you, but these drugs, they really tire me out. I think I'm going to have to go lie down for a while. Oh, you're not feeling well? It's nothing, it's just these drugs. Too bad. You will definitely have to come back when you are feeling better and bring those recordings, the ones with you playing. Is that a deal? I had to reassure her some more that I had a good time and that I would come back. Then, as I was going out the door, she said, Steve, do you play chess? I'm the world's worst chess player, but I've got the cutest chess set Meg Ryan brought in for me last week. Back in my room, I took a Coke from the minibar and sat down at the writing desk, looked out my window. There was a big pink sunset now. We were a long way up, and I could see the cars moving along the freeway in the distance. After a few minutes, I phoned Bradley, and though his secretary kept me on hold for a long time, he eventually came on the line. How's the face? He asked worriedly, like he was inquiring after a well-loved pet he had left in my care. How should I know? I'm still the invisible man. Are you alright? You sound dispirited. I am dispirited. This whole thing's a mistake. I can see that now. It's not going to work. There was a moment of silence, then he asked, The operation's a failure? I'm sure the operation is fine. I mean all the rest of it. What it's going to lead to. This scheme. It's never going to play out the way you say it. I should never have you let me talk me into it. What's the matter with you? You sound depressed. What have they been pumping into you? I'm fine. In fact, my head's straighter than it's been for a while. That's the trouble. I can see it now. Your scheme. I should never have listened to you. What is this? What scheme? Look, Steve. This isn't complicated. You are a very talented artist. When you are through with this, all you do is what you have always done. Just now, you're simply removing an obstacle. That's all. There's no scheme. Look, Bradley, it's bad here. It's not just a physical discomfort. I realize now what I'm doing to myself. It's been a mistake. I should have had more respect for myself. Steve, what's triggered this? Did something just happen over there? Damn right something happened. That's why I'm calling. I need you to get me out of this. I need you to get me to a different hotel. Different hotel? Who are you? Crown Prince Abdullah? What the fuck's wrong with the hotel? What's wrong is I've got Lindy Gardner right next door, and she just invited me over, and she's gonna keep inviting me over. That's what's wrong. Lindy Gardner's right next door? Look, I can't go through that again. I've just been in there, and it was all I could do to stay as long as I did. And now she's saying we have to play with her Meg Ryan chess set. Steve, you're telling me that Lindy Gardner's is next door and you spend time with her. She put on her husband's record. Fuck it. I think she's gonna play another right now. Explain to me how. Wait, this is what I've come to. This is my level right now. Steve, hold it. Let's go over this again. Steve, just shut the fuck up. Then explain to me. Explain to me how you get to be with Lindy Gardner. I did calm down then for a while, and I gave a brief account of how Lindy had asked me over and how the way had gone. So you weren't rude to her? He asked as soon as I was through. No, I wasn't rude to her. I kept it all held in. But I'm not going back in there. I need to change hotels. Steve, you're not going to change hotels. Lindy Gardner, she's in bandages. You're in bandages. She's right next door. Steve, this is a golden opportunity. It's nothing of the sort, Bradley. It's the inner circle hell. Her Meg Ryan chess set, for God's sake. Meg Ryan's chess set? How does that even work? Every piece looks like Meg? And she wants to hear my playing. She insisting next time I take my CDs. She wants to. Jesus, Steve, you haven't even got the bandages off and everything's going your way. She wants to hear you play? I'm asking you to deal with this, Bradley. Okay, I'm in deep. I've got the surgery. You talked me into it because I was a fool. Enough to believe everything you said, but I don't have to put up with this. I don't have to spend the next 2 weeks with Lindy Gardner. I'm asking you to get me moved pronto. I'm not getting you moved anywhere. Do you realize how important a person Lindy Gardner is? You know the kind of people she's pals with? What she could do for you with just one phone call. Okay, she's divorced from Tony Gardner now. That doesn't change a thing. Get her on your team. Get your new face. Doors will open. You will be big league 5 seconds flat. It won't be big league anything, Bradley, because I'm not going over there again. And I don't want any doors opening for me other than the ones that open because of my music. And I don't believe what you said before, and I don't believe all this crap about a scheme. I don't think you should be expressing yourself so empathetically. I'm very concerned about those stitches. Bradley, very soon you won't have to be concerned about my stitches at all, because you know what? I'm going to pull off this mummy mask and I'm going to put my fingers into every corners of my mouth and yank my face into every kind of stretchy combinations possible. Do you hear me, Bradley? I heard him sigh. Then he said, "Okay, calm down. Just calm down. You've been under a lot of stress lately. It's understandable. You don't want to see Lindy right now. If you want to let the go flow go sorry. If you want to let go floating by. Okay, I understand your position. But be polite, okay? Make a good excuse. Don't burn any bridges." I felt a lot better after this talk with Bradley and had a reasonably contented evening, watching half a movie then listening to Bill Evans. Next morning after breakfast, Dr. Boris came in with 2 nurses, seemed satisfied and left. A little later, around 11, I had a visitor, a drummer called Lee, who I played with in a house band in San Diego a few years ago. Bradley, who's also Lee's manager, had suggested that he come by. Lee's okay, and I was pleased to see him. He stayed for an hour or so and swapped news about mutual friends, who was in which band, who packed their bags and gone to Canada or to Europe. It's too bad how so many of the old teams aren't around anymore, he said. You have great times together. Next thing you don't know where they are. He told me about his recent gigs and we laughed over some memories from our San Diego days. Then towards the end of his visit, he said, "And what about Jake Marvel? What do you make of it? Strange world, ain't it?" "It's strange, alright," I said, but then again, Jake was always a good musician. He deserved what he's getting. Yeah, but it's strange. Remember how Jake was back then in San Diego? Steve, you could have blown him off the stage every night of the week. Now, look at him. Is that just luck or what? Jake was always a nice guy, I said, and as far as I'm concerned, it's good to see any saxophone player getting recognition. Recognition's right, Lee said. And right here in this hotel too. Let me see, I've got it here. He rummaged in his bag and produced a tattered copy of LA Weekly. Yeah, here it is. The Simon and Westbury Music Awards. Jazz Musician of the Year, Jake Marvel. Let's see, when is this fucker? Tomorrow down in the ballroom. You could take a stroll down the stairs and attend the ceremony. He put the paper down and shook his head. Jake Marvel, Jazz Musician of the Year. Who would have thought it, eh, Steve? I guess I won't make it downstairs, I said. But I'll remember to raise a glass to him. Jake Marble. Boy, is this a screw up world or what? About an hour after lunch, the phone rang and it was Lindy. The chess set's all laid out, sweetie, she said. You ready to play? Don't say no. I'm going crazy here with boredom. And don't forget, bring those CD. I'm just dying to hear you play. I put the phone down and sat on the edge of the bed trying to figure out how it was I hadn't stood on my ground better. In fact, I hadn't put up even a hint of no. Maybe it was just plain spinelessness, or maybe I had taken on board much of what Bradley's argument on the phone that I had better admit. But now, there wasn't time to think about it because I had to decide which of my CDs were most likely to impress her. The more avant-garde stuff was definitely out, as was the stuff I recorded with the electro funk guys in San Francisco last year. In the end, I chose just the one CD, changed to a fresh shirt, put my dressing gown back over the top, and went next door. She too had a dressing gown, but it was the kind she could worn to a movie premiere without too much embarrassment. Sure enough, the chess set was there on the low glass table, and we sat down opposite sides like before and began again. Maybe because we had something to do with our hands, things felt more relaxed than the last time. As we played, we found ourselves talking about this and that, TV shows, her favorite European cities, Chinese food. There was far less name dropping this time around, and she sighed, and she seemed much calmer. At one point, she said, "You know what I do to stop myself going crazy in this place? My big secret. I'll tell you, but not a word, not even to Gracie, promise. What I do is I go out for midnight walks just inside this building. But it's so vast you can walk around forever. It's dead of night. It's amazing. Last night I was out there maybe for a whole hour. You have to be careful. There's still stuff roving around all the time. And I've never been caught. I hear anything at all. I run away and hide somewhere. Once this cleaning guy saw me for a second, but like that I was away into the shadows. It's so exciting. All day you are this prisoner, and then you are like completely free. It's truly wonderful. I'm gonna take me some nights, sweetie. I'll show you great things. The bars, the restaurants, the conference rooms, wonderful ballroom, and there's no one there. Everything's just dark and empty. And I discovered the most fantastic place, a kind of penthouse. I think it's going to be a presidential suite. They're halfway through building it, but I found it and I was able to walk right in, and I stayed there 20 minutes, half an hour, just thinking things over. Hey, Steve, is this right? I can do this and take your queen. Oh yeah, I guess so. I didn't see that. Hey Lindy, you're a lot smarter at this than you let on. Now what am I supposed to do? Alright, I'll tell you what. Since you are the guest and you were obviously distracted by what I was saying, I'm going to pretend I never saw it. Isn't that nice of me? Say Steve, I can't remember if I asked you this before. You're married, right? That's right. So what does she think of all this? I mean, this isn't cheap. Quite a few pairs of shoes she could buy with this kind of money. She's okay about it. In fact, this was her idea in the first place. Look, who's not paying attention now? Oh hell, I'm such a lousy player anyway. Say, I don't mean to be nosy, but does she come to visit you much? Actually, she hasn't been here at all, but that was always the understanding we had before we came in here. Yeah? She seemed puzzled, so I said, "It might sound odd, I know, but that's the way we wanted to do it." Right. Then after a while she said, "So, does that mean no one comes to visit you here?" "I get visitors. Matter of fact, someone called this morning. Musician I used to work with." "Oh yeah? That's good. You know, sweetie, I've never been sure how these nights move. You see me do something wrong, you just say, okay? It's not me trying to pull a fast one. Sure. Then I said, the guy who came to see me today told me some news. It was kind of strange, a coincidence. Yeah? There was this saxophone player we both knew a few years ago back in San Diego. The guy is called Jake Marvel. Maybe you've heard of him. He's a big league now. Back then, when we knew him, he was nothing. In fact, he was a phony, what you would call a bluffer. Never knew his way around the keys properly. I've heard him play recently plenty of times. He hasn't gotten any better. But he had a few breaks and he's now considered hot. I swear to you, he's not one bit better than he used to be. Not one bit. But you know what this news was? The same guy, Jake Marvel, he's getting a big music award tomorrow, right here in this hotel. Jazz Musician of the Year. It's just crazy, you know. So many talented sax players out there, and they decide to give it to Jake. I made myself stop. Looking up from the chessboard did a little laugh. What can you do? I said more gently. Lindy was sitting up, her attention fully on me. That's too bad. And this guy, he's no good, you say? I'm sorry, I was kind of out of the line there. They want to give Jake an award, why shouldn't they? But if he's no good, he's as good as the next guy. I was just talking. I'm sorry, you have to ignore me. Hey, that reminds me, Lindy said. Did you remember to bring your music? Thank you, Flynn. Oh, I didn't know you're here. Hey, Flynn, good morning. Thank you. I'm gonna take my tea. Thank you. I think I've been reading non-stop without taking a sip of tea since the beginning. But yeah, thank you so much for the redemption. Hmm. Hey, Daddy. You're here too. Good morning. Is it your off day today? Aw, it's nice of y'all to be here. Thank you. Aw, guys are so sweet. Alright, let us continue. Hey, that reminds me, Lindy said. Did you remember to bring your music? I indicated the CD beside me on the sofa. I don't know if it would interest you. You don't have to listen. Oh, but I do. I absolutely do. Here, let me see it. I handed her the CD. It's a band I played with in Pasadena. We played standard old-fashioned swing, a little bossa nova, nothing special. I just brought it because you asked. She was examining the CD case, holding it close to her face, then away from her again. So you were in this picture? She brought it up close again. I'm curious what you like, or should I say how you look like. I'm second from the right, in the Hawaiian shirt, holding the ironing board. This one? She stared at the CD and over at me. Then she said, Hey, you are cute. But she said it in quietly, in a voice devoid of conviction. In fact, I noted a definite touch of pity there. Almost immediately, though, she recovered. Okay, so let's hear it. As she moved towards the Bang and Olufsen, I said, track number 9, The Nearness of You. That's my special track. The nearness of you coming up. I settled on this track after some thought. The musicians in that band had been top notch. Individually, we had it all more radical ambitions, but we formed the band with the express purpose of playing quality mainstream material, the sort of the supper crowd would want. Our version of the nearness of you, which featured my tenor all the way through, wasn't 100 miles from Tony Gardner territory, but I'd always been genuinely proud of it. Maybe you think you heard this song done every way possible. Well, listen to ours. Listen. say, to that chorus, or to that moment when we come out of the middle eight, or when the band go 3/5 or 6/9, when I rise up in intervals, you'll never believe possible, and then hold that sweet, very tender high B flat. I think there are colors there, longings and regrets you won't have to come across before. So you could say I was confident this recording would meet Lindy's approval. And for the first minute or so, she looked like to be enjoying herself. She stayed on her feet after loading the CD, just like the time she would play me her husband's record. Just like the time she played me her husband's record, she began swaying dreamily to the slow beat. But then the rhythm faded from her movements until she was standing there quite still, her back to me, head bent forward like she was concentrating. I didn't at first see this as a bad sign. It was only when she came walking back and sat down with the music still in full flow I realized something was wrong. Because of the bandages, of course, I couldn't read her expression, but the way she let herself slump into the sofa like a tense mannequin didn't look good. When the track ended, I picked up the remote and turned it all off. For what felt like a long time, she stayed the way she was, stiff and awkward. Then she hauled herself up and a little and began fingering a chess piece. "That was very nice," she said. "Thank you for letting me hear it." It sounded formulaic, and she didn't seem to mind that it did. "Maybe it wasn't quite your thing." "No, no." Her voice had become sulky and quiet. "It was just fine. Thank you for letting me hear it." She put the chess piece down on the square and then said, "Your move." I looked at the board, trying to remember where we were. After a while, I asked gently, "Maybe that particular song, it had special association for you?" She looked up and I sensed anger behind her bandages, but in the same quiet voice, "That song? It has no associations, none at all." Suddenly she laughed, a short, unkind laugh. "You mean association with him? With Tony?" "No, no, it was never one of his numbers. You played very nicely, very professional." "Really professional? What's that supposed to mean?" "I mean, that's really professional. I mean it as a compliment." "Professional?" I got to my feet, crossed the room, got the disc out of the machine. "What are you so mad about?" Her voice was still distant and cold. "Did I say something wrong? I'm sorry, I was just trying to be nice." I came back down to the table, put the disc back in its case, but didn't sit down. "So are we going to finish the game?" she asked. "If you don't mind, I've got a few things I have to do. Phone calls, paperwork." "What are you so mad about? I don't understand." "I'm not mad at all. Time's getting on, that's all." She at least got to her feet to walk me to the door, where we parted with a cold handshake. I've already said how my sleep rhythm had been screwed up after the surgery. That evening, I became suddenly tired, went to bed early, slept soundly for a few hours, then woke up in the dead of night, unable to go back to sleep. After a while, I got up and turned on the TV. I found a movie I have seen as a kid, so I pulled out a chair and watched what remained of it with the volume down low. When that was over, I watched two preachers shouting at each other in front of a baying audience. All in all, I was contented. I felt cozy and a million miles from the outside world. So my heart just jumped out of my chest when the phone rang. "Steve, is that you?" It was Lindy. Her voice sounded odd and I wondered if she had been drinking. "Yeah, it's me. I know it's late, but just now when I was passing I saw your light under your door. I suppose you're having trouble sleeping just like me." "I guess so. It's difficult keeping regular hours." "Yeah, it sure is." Is everything okay? I asked. Sure, everything's good. Very good. I realized now she wasn't drunk, but I couldn't put my finger on what was up with her. She probably wasn't high on anything either, just peculiarly awake and maybe excited about something she had to tell me. You sure everything's okay? I asked again. Yeah, really, but look, sweetie, I have something here. Something I want to give you. Oh? What might that be? I don't want to say. I want it to be a surprise. Sounds interesting. I'll come and get it, maybe after breakfast. I was kind of hoping you'd come over and get it now. I mean, it's here, and you're awake, and I'm awake. I know it's late, but listen, Steve, about earlier, about what happened. I feel I owe you an explanation. Forget it. I didn't mind. You were mad at me because you thought I didn't like your music. Well, that wasn't true. That was the reverse of the truth. The exact reverse. What you played, the version of nearness of you, I hadn't been able to get it out of my head. No, I don't mean head. I mean heart. I haven't able to get it out of my heart. I didn't know what to say. Before I could think of anything again, she was talking again. Will you come over right now? Then I will explain all properly. And most important, no, I'm not saying it's gonna be a surprise. Come over and you will see and bring your CD again. Will you do that? She took the CD from me as soon as she opened the door, like I was a delivery boy, then grabs me by the wrist and let me in. Lindy was in the same glamorous dressing gown as before, but she looked a little less immaculate now. One side of the gown was hanging lower than the other, and a woolly dangle of fluff was caught in the back of her bandages near the neckline. I take, I take it you have been on one of your nocturnal walks, I said. I'm so glad that you are up. I don't know if I could have waited till morning. Now listen, like I told you, I have a surprise. I hope you are going to like it. I think you will. But first, I want you to make yourself comfortable. We're going to listen to your song again. Let me think, which track was it? I sat down on my usual sofa and watched her fussing with the hi-fi. The lighting in the room was soft and the air felt pleasantly cool. Then the nearness of you came on at high volume. Don't you think this might disturb people? I said. To hell with them. We pay enough for this place, it's not our problem. Now, shh, listen. She began to sway to the music like before, only this time she didn't stop after a verse. In fact, she seemed to get more lost in the music the longer it went on, holding her arms like she had an imaginary dance partner. When it finished, she turned it off and remained very still, standing at the end of the room with her back at me. She stayed like that for what felt like a long time, then finally came towards me. I don't know what to say, she said. It's sublime. You are a wonderful, wonderful musician. You are a genius. Well, thank you. I knew it the first time. That's the truth. That's why I reacted the way I did, pretending to not like it, pretending to be snotty. She sat down facing me and sighed. Tony used to pull me up about it. I've always done it. It's something I don't ever seem to get over. I run into a person who's really talented, someone who's just been blessed that way by God, and I can't help it. My first instinct is to do what I did with you. It's just, I don't know, I guess it's jealousy? It's like you see these women with times they're kind of plain. A beautiful woman comes into the room, they hate it. They want to claw her eyes out. That's the way I am when I meet people like you, especially if it's unexpected. The way it was today, and I'm not ready. I mean, there you were. 1 minute I'm thinking you're just one of the public, and then suddenly, well, you are something else. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, I'm trying to tell you why I behaved so badly earlier. You had every right to be mad at me. The late night silence hung between us for a while. Well, I appreciate it, I said eventually. I appreciate you telling me this. She stood up suddenly. Now, the surprise. Just wait. Don't move. She went through the adjoining room and I could hear her opening and shutting drawers. When she came back, she was holding something in front of her with both hands. I couldn't see what the something was because she had thrown a silk handkerchief over it. She halted in the middle of the room. Steve, I want you to come and receive this. This is going to be a presentation. I was puzzled, but got to my feet. As I went to her, she pulled off the handkerchief and held towards me a shiny brass ornament. You thoroughly deserve this, so it's yours. Jazz Musician of the Year. Maybe of all time. Congratulations. She placed it on my hands and kissed me lightly on the cheek through the crepe. Well, thanks. This is a surprise. Hey, this looks pretty. What is it? An alligator? An alligator? Come on! It's a pair of cute little cherubs kissing each other. Oh yeah, I can see it now. Wow, thanks, Lindy. I don't know what to say. It's really beautiful. An alligator. I'm sorry. It's just the way this guy has his legs stretched all the way out. But I see it now. It's really beautiful. Well, it's all yours. You deserve it. I'm touched, Lindy. I really am. But what does it say down here? I don't have my glasses. It says Jazz Musician of the Year. What else would it say? That's what it says? Sure, that's what it says. I went back to my sofa, holding the statuette, sat down and thought a little. Say, Lindy, I said eventually, this item that you have just given me, it's not possible, is it, you came across it on one of your midnight walks? Sure, it's possible. I see. And it's not possible, is it, that this is the real award? I mean, the actual gong they were going to hand to Jake? Lindy didn't reply for a second, but kept standing there very still. Then she said, of course it's the real thing. What would be the point to give you any old junk? There was an injustice about to be committed, and now justice has prevailed. And that's all that matters. Hey, sweetie, come on. You know you are the one who deserves this award. Oh, hey, Bit, I didn't realize you're here. Hey, yo. I appreciate your point of view. It's just that, well, this is kind of like stealing. Stealing? Didn't you say that this guy is no good? A fake? And you are a genius. Who's trying to steal from who here? Lindy, where exactly did you come across this thing? She shrugged. Just someplace. One of the places that I go. An office, you might call it, maybe. Tonight? You pick it up tonight? Of course I pick it up tonight. I didn't know about your award last night. Sure. So that's about an hour ago, would you say? An hour? Maybe 2 hours? Who knows? I was out there sometime. I went to the presidential suite for a while. Jesus. Look. Who cares? What are you so worried about? They lose this one, they can just go and get another one. They probably got a closet full somewhere. I presented you with something you deserve. You're not going to turn it down, are you, Steve? I'm not turning it down, Lindy. The sentiment, the honor, all of that, I accept it all. I'm really happy about it. But this, the actual trophy, we're going to have to take it back. We have to put it back exactly where you found it. Screw them. Who cares? Lindy, you haven't thought this through. What will you do when this gets out? Can you imagine what the press will do with this? The gossip, the scandal? What will your public say? Now come on. We're going out there right now before people start waking up. You're going to show me exactly where you found this thing. She suddenly looked like a kid who had been scolded. Then she sighed and said, I guess you're right, sweetie. Once we had agreed to take it back, Lindy became quite possessive about the award, holding it close to her bosom all the time we hurried through the passageways of the vast sleeping hotel. She led the way down hidden stairways, along the back corridors, past sauna rooms and vending machines. We didn't see or hear a soul. Then Lindy whispered, It was this way. And we pushed through heavy doors into a dark space. Once I was there, we were alone, and I switched on the flashlight I brought from Lindy's room and shone it around. We were in the ballroom, though if you were looking to dance just then, you would have trouble with all the dining tables, each one with its white linen cover. Oh my god. Thank you so much for the gifted sub to Diane. Congrats, Diane. You got a gifted sub. Thank you. Thank you, Bit. Goodness gracious. Thank you. Thank you for the sub, guys. It's not necessary. Just give me a follow and I'm happy enough with follows. Thank you so much. Alright, let us continue. The ceiling had a fancy central chandelier. At the far end there was a raised stage, probably large enough to put on a fair-sized show, though right now the curtains were drawn across it. Someone had left a stepladder in the middle of the room and an upright vacuum cleaner against the wall. It's going to be some party, she said. 400, 500 people? I wandered further into the room and threw the torch beam around some more. Maybe this is where it's going to happen, where they're going to give Jake his award. Of course it is, where I found this. She held up a statuette. There were other ones too, Best Newcomer, R&B Album of the Year, that kind of stuff. It's going to be a big event. Now, my eyes had adjusted. I could see the place better, even though the flashlight wasn't so powerful. And for a moment, as I stood there looking up at the stage, I could imagine the way the place would look later on. I imagined all the people in their fancy clothes, the record company men, the big-time promoters, the random showbiz celebrities laughing and praising each other. The fawningly sincere applause every time the MC mentioned the name of a sponsor. More applause this time with whoops and cheers when the awards winners went up. I imagined Jake Marvel up on that stage, holding his trophy, the same smug smile he had always had in San Diego when he finished a solo and the audience clapped. I let out a sigh. Oh wait, maybe we've got this wrong, I said. Maybe there's no need to return all this. Maybe we should just throw it all in the garbage. And all the other awards you found with it. Yeah? Lindy sounded puzzled. Is that what you really want to do, sweetie? I let out a sigh. No, I guess not, but it would be satisfying, wouldn't it? All those awards in the garbage. I bet every one of those winners is a fake. I bet there isn't enough talent between the lot of them to fill a hot dog bun. I waited for Lindy to say something to this, but nothing came. Then, when she did speak, there was some new note, something tighter in her voice. How do you know some of these guys aren't okay? How do you know some of them don't deserve their award? How do I know? I felt a sudden tide of irritation. How do I know? Well, let's think about it. A panel that considers Jake Marvel the year's outstanding jazz musician. What other kind of people are they going to honor? But what do you know about these guys? Even this Jake fella. How do you know he didn't work really hard to get where he was? What is this? You're Jake's greatest fan now? I'm just expressing my opinion. Your opinion. So this is your opinion. I guess I shouldn't be so surprised. For a moment there I was forgetting who you are. What the hell's supposed to mean? How dare you speak to me that way? It occurred to me I was losing my grip. I said quickly, okay, I'm out of the line. I'm sorry. Let's go find this office. Hello, Ando. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Lindy had gone silent, and when I turned to face her, I couldn't see well enough in the light to guess what she was thinking. Lindy, where is this office? We need to find it. Eventually, she indicated that with the statuette towards the back of the hall that led the way past the table, still not speaking. When we were there, I put my ear against the door for a few seconds, hearing nothing, opened it carefully. We were in a long narrow space seemed to run parallel with the ballroom. A dim light had been left on somewhere, so we could just make things out with the flashlight. It was obvious, not the office we were after, but some kind of catering cum kitchen area. Long extended work counters ran along both walls, leaving a gangway down the middle wide enough for staff to put final touches to the food. One moment, please. Sorry, I need to put on my lip balm. It was getting dry. But Lindy seemed to recognize the place and went striding purposely down the gangway. About halfway along, she stopped suddenly to examine one of the baking trays left on the counter. Hey, cookies! She seemed completely to have regained her equanimity. Too bad it's all under cellophane. I'm famished. Look, let's see what's under this one. She went on a few more steps to a big dome-shaped lid and raised it. Look at this, sweetie. It looks really good. And she was leaning over a plump roast turkey. Instead of replacing the lid, she laid down carefully next to the bird. Do you think they would mind if I pull a leg off? I think they would mind a lot, Lindy, but what the hell? It's a big baby. Wanna share a leg with me? Sure, why not? Okay, here goes. She reached towards the turkey, then suddenly she straightened and turned to face me. So, what was that supposed to mean back there? What was what supposed to mean? What were you saying? You said that you weren't surprised about my opinion. What was that about? Look, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to be offensive. I was just thinking aloud, that's all. Thinking aloud? Well, how about thinking aloud some more? So I suggest some of these guys may have deserved their awards. Why is that a ridiculous statement? Look, all I'm saying is that the wrong people end up with the awards, that's all. But you seem to know better. You think that's not what happens. Some of those guys, maybe they work damn hard to get where they have, and maybe they deserve a little recognition. The trouble with people like you, just because God's given you this special gift, you think that entitles you to everything. That you are better than the rest of us, that you deserve to the front of the line every time. You don't see a whole lot of other people who weren't as lucky as you, who work really hard for their place in the world. So you don't think I work hard? You think I just sit on my ass all day? I sweat and heave and break my balls to come up with something worthwhile, something beautiful. Then who is it gets the recognition? Jake Marvel, people like you. How fucking dare you? What do I have to do with this? Am I getting an award today? Has anyone ever given me a goddamn award? Have I ever had anything, even in school, one lousy certificate for singing or dancing or any damn thing else? No, not a fucking thing. I had to watch all of you, all you creeps, going up there getting the prizes and the parents clapping. No prizes? No prizes? Look at you! Who gets to be famous? Who gets the fancy houses? At that moment, someone flicked a switch and we were blinking at each other under harsh bright lights. Two men came in the same way we had and were now moving towards us. The gangway was just wide enough to let them walk side by side. One was a huge black guy in the hotel security guard's uniform, and what I first thought was a gun in his hand was a two-way radio. Beside him was a small white man in a light blue suit with slick black hair. Neither of them looked particularly differential. They stopped a yard or two away, then the small guy took an ID out of his jacket. LAPD, he said. Name's Morgan. Good evening, I said. For a moment, the cop and the security guard went on looking at us in silence. Then the cop said, Guests of the hotel? Yes, we are. I said, We are guests. I felt the soft material of Lindy's nightgown brush against my back. Then she had taken my arm and we were standing side by side. Good evening, officer, she said in a sleepy honeydew voice unlike her usual one. Good evening, ma'am, the cop said. And are you folks up at this time for any special reason? We both started to answer at once and then laughed, but neither of the men laughed or smiled. We were having trouble sleeping, Lindy said, so we were just walking. Just walking. The cop looked around in the stark white light, maybe looking for something to eat. That's right, officer. Lindy's voice was still way over the top. We got a little hungry the way I'm sure you do too sometimes in the night. I guess room service isn't up to much, the cop said. No, it's not so good, I said. Just the usual stuff, the cop said. Steaks, pizzas, hamburgers, triple deckers club. I know, because I just ordered from all night room service myself, but I guess you folks don't like the kind of food. Well, you know how it is, officer, Lindy said. That's the fun. The fun of creeping down and taking a bite and, a little bit forbidden the way you did when you were a little kid. Neither man showed any sign of melting, but the cop said, Sorry to trouble you folks, but you understand this area isn't open to guests, and one or two items have gone missing just recently. Really? Yeah, you folks see anything odd or suspicious tonight? Lindy and I looked at each other, then she shook her head at me dramatically. No, I said, we haven't seen anything odd. Nothing at all? The security guard had been coming closer and now he came us.
Stretch!
Oh, alrighty. Ah, my cat. Yeah? Yeah. Yeah. Aw, sweet. Sweet, sweet little kitty cat. Kitty cat. I had a good stretch. Now we shall continue. Thank you for the redemption, by the way, Pete. I realized the plan was for him to check us over more closely to see if maybe we were concealing anything on our persons, but his partner kept us talking. No, nothing, I said. What kind of thing did you have in mind? Suspicious people, unusual activity. Do you mean, officer? Lindy said with a shock horror. That rooms has been broken into? Not exactly, ma'am, but certain items of value have gone missing. I could sense the security guard shift behind us. So, that's why you are here with us, Lindy said, to protect us and our belongings. That's right, ma'am. The cop's gaze moved fractionally, and I got the impression he had exchanged a look with the man behind us. So, if you see anything odd, please call security right away. The interview seemed to be over, and the cop moved aside to let us out. Relieved, I made a move to go, but Lindy said, I suppose it was kind of naughty of us coming down here to eat. I thought about helping ourselves to some of the gâteau over there, but then we thought it might be for a special occasion, and it would be such a shame to spoil it. This hotel has good room service, the cop said. 24 hours. I tugged at Lindy, but she seemed now to be seized by the oft cited mania of criminals to flirt with being caught. And you just ordered something for you up for yourself, officer? Sure. And it was good? It was pretty good. I recommend you folks do the same. Let's leave this gentleman to get on with their investigations, I said, tugging at her arm, but still she didn't budge. Officer, may I ask you something? She asked. Do you mind? Try me. You were talking just now about seeing something odd. Do you see something odd yourself? I mean, about us? I don't know what you mean, ma'am. Like, both of us have our faces entirely wrapped in bandages. Did you notice that? The cop looked at us carefully as though to verify the last statement. Then he said, As a matter of fact, I did notice, ma'am, but I didn't wish to make any personal remarks. Oh, I see, Lindy said, then turning to me. Wasn't that considerate of him? Come on, I said, pulling her along now quite forcefully. I could feel both men staring at our backs all the way to the exit. We crossed the ballroom with an outward show of calm, but once we were past the big swing doors, we gave in to panic and broke into a near turn. Our arms stayed linked, so we did a lot of stumbling and colliding as Lindy led me through the building. Then she pulled me into a service elevator, and only when the doors closed when we were climbing did she let go, lean back against the metal wall, and start up a weird noise, which I realized was how hysterical laughter sounded through the bandages. When we stepped out of the elevator, she put her arms on mine again. Okay, we are safe, she said. Now, I want to take you somewhere. This is really something. See this? She held up a key card. Let's see what this can do for us. She used the card to get us through a door marked private. Then a door marked danger, keep out. Then we were standing in a space smelling of paint and plaster. There were cables from the walls and ceiling. The cold floor was splashed and mottled. We could see fine because one side of the room was entirely glass, unadorned by curtains or blinds, and all the outdoor lighting was filling the place with yellowish patches. We were up even higher than our floor. There was in front of us a helicopter-style view over the freeway and the surrounding territory. It's going to be the new presidential suite, Lindy said. I love coming in here. No light switches yet, no carpet, but it's slowly coming together. When I first found it, it was much rougher, but you can see how it will look. There, even this couch right now, in the center of the room, was a bulky shape with a sheet draped over it, completely over it. Lindy went to it like it was an old friend, flopped down entirely. It's my fantasy, she said, but I kind of believe in it. They're building this room just for me. That's why I get to be in here. All of this is because they're helping me to build my future. This place used to be a real mess, but look at it now. It's taking shape. It's going to be grand. She patted the space next to her. Come on, sweetie, have a rest. I'm feeling drained. You must be too. The couch, or whatever it was under the sheet, was surprisingly comfortable. And as soon as I sunk into it, I felt waves of tiredness coming over me. Boy, am I sleepy, Lindy said, and her weight fell onto my shoulder. Isn't this place a great place? I found the key in the slot. First I came here. We were quiet for a while, and I felt myself falling asleep. Then I remembered something. Hey, Lindy. Lindy, what happened to the award? The award? Oh yeah, the award. I hit it. What else could I do? You know, sweetie, you really deserve that award. I hope it means something to you by presenting it to you tonight, the way I did. It wasn't just a whim. I thought about it. I thought about it really carefully. I don't know if it means much to you. I don't know if you will even remember it 10 years, 20 years down the line. I will, for sure. And it does mean a lot to me. But Lindy, you said it that you hid it, but where? Where did you hide it? Hmm? She was falling asleep again. I hid it in the only place I could. I put it in the turkey. You put it in the turkey. I did exactly the same thing once when I was 9 years old. I hid my sister's glow ball inside a turkey. That's what gave me the idea. Quick thinking, right? Yeah, sure I was. I felt so tired, but I forced myself to focus. But, Lindy, how well did you hide it? I mean, would the cops have found it by now? I don't see how. There wasn't anything sticking out, if that's what you mean. But, would they think to look up there? I was pushing it behind my back like this and kept pushing. I didn't turn around to look at it because then those boys would have wondered what I was doing. It wasn't just a whim, deciding to give you the award. I just thought about it real hard. I hope it means something to you. God, I need to sleep. She slumped against me, and the next moment she was making snoring noises. Concerned about her surgery, I adjusted her head carefully so her cheek wasn't pressing on my shoulder. I then too began to drift off. I woke up with a jerk and saw signs of dawn in the big window in front of us. Lindy was still fast asleep, so I carefully extricated myself from her, stood up, and stretched my arm. I went to the big window and looked at the pale sky and the freeway far below. Something been on my mind as I was falling asleep, and I tried to remember what it was, but my brain was foggy and exhausted. Then I remembered, and I went to the couch and shook Lindy awake. What is it? What is it? What do you want? She said without her eyes, opening her eyes. Lindy, I said, the award. We have forgotten about the award. I told you already, it's in that turkey. Okay, so listen. The cops may not have thought to look up inside the turkey, but sooner or later, someone's gonna find it. Maybe someone's carving it right now. So what? So they'll find it in there. So what? They'll find the thing in there and they'll report the big find. Then the cop remembers us. He remember we were standing right there next to the turkey. Lindy seemed to get more awake. Yeah, she said, I see what you are saying. Well, that trophy stays in the turkey. They can link us to the crime. Hey, crime. What do you mean crime? Doesn't matter what you call it. We need to go back there and get the thing out of the turkey. It doesn't matter where we leave it after that, but we can't just leave it where it is right now. Sweetie, are you sure we have to do it? Have to do this? I'm so tired right now. We have to do it, Lindy. We have to. We leave it the way it is, you will get into trouble. And remember, that means a big story for the press. Lindy thought about this, then she straightened up her posture a few notches and looked up at me. Okay, she said, let's go back there. This time around, there was cleaning noises and voices down the corridors, but we still made it back to the ballroom without encountering anyone. There was also more light to see by, and Lindy pointed out the notice beside the double doors. It said in plastic mixed spell letters, J.A. Pool Cleaners Inc. Breakfast. No wonder we couldn't find the office with all the awards. This is the wrong ballroom. It makes no difference. What we want in there is in there right now. We crossed the ballroom, then cautiously entered the catering room. Like before, a dim light had been left on, and now there was also some natural light from the ventilation windows. There was nobody inside, but when I glanced along the work counters, I saw we were in trouble. Looks like someone's already been here, I said. Yeah. Lindy took a few steps down the gangway, glancing about her. Yeah, looks that way. All the canisters, trays, cake boxes, silver dome platters that we had seen earlier all had vanished. In their place were neat piles of plates and napkins positioned in regular intervals. Okay, so they have moved all the food, I say. Question is, where to? Lindy wandered further down the gangway, then turned to me. Remember, Steve, the last time we were here, before those men came in, we were having quite a discussion. Yeah, I remember. But why go over that again? I know I was out of the line. Yeah, right, let's forget it. So, where's the turkey gone? She glanced around the room some more. You know what, Steve? When I was a kid, I so wanted to be a dancer and a singer. And then I tried. God knows, I tried. But people just laughed. And I thought this world is so unfair. Then I grew up a little and I realized that the world wasn't so unfair after all. That even if you were like me, one of those unblessed, there was still good chance for you. You could still find a place in the sun. You didn't have to settle for being just the public. It wasn't going to be easy, but you have to work it out, not mind what people said. But there was definitely still a chance. Well, it looks like you did okay. It's funny the way this world works, you know? I think it's very insightful. On the part of your wife, I mean, telling you to get this surgery. Let's leave her out of it. Hey, Lindy, do you know where that leads? Over there? At the far end of the room, where the counters came to an end, there were 3 steps leading up to a green door. Why don't we try opening it? Lindy said. We opened the door as cautiously as the last one. Then, for a while, I became utterly disoriented. Everything was dark, and each time I tried to turn around, I found I was beating back curtain material or else tarpaulin. Lindy, who had taken the flashlight, seemed to be doing better somewhere in front of me. Then I stumbled into the dark space where she had been waiting for me, shining the torch on my feet. I noticed, she said in a whisper, you don't like talking about her, your wife, I mean. It's not exactly. It's not that exactly, I whispered back. Where are we? And she never comes to visit. That's because we're not exactly together just now, since you must know. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be nosy. You didn't mean to be nosy? Hey, sweetie, look, this is it. This is it. We found it. She was pointing the beam at a table a short distance away. It had a white tablecloth on it and 2 silver domes by its side. I went up to the first dome, carefully raised it, and sure enough, there was a fat roast turkey sitting there. I searched out its cavity and inserted the finger. Nothing here, I said. You have to get right in there. I pushed it right up. These birds are bigger than you think. I'm telling you, there's nothing in there. Holding the flashlight, we'll try the other one. I carefully took the lid off the second turkey. You know, Steve, I think it's a mistake. You shouldn't be embarrassed to talk about it. About what? About you and your wife separated. Did I say we separated? Did I say that? I said we weren't exactly together. That's not the same thing. It sounds like the same thing. Well, it isn't. It's just a temporary thing. Something we're trying out. Hey, I've got something. There's something in here. This is it. Then why don't you pull it out, sweetie? What do you think I'm trying to do? Jesus, did you have to push it so far in? Shh, there's someone out there. At first, it was hard to say how many of them there were, but the voice came closer and I realized it was just one guy. Continued talking into a cellophane. I also realized exactly where we were. I've been thinking we had wandered off into some vague backstage area, but in fact, we were right up on the stage itself. And the curtain facing me was the only thing now dividing us from the ballroom. The man on the cellophane, then walking across the floor on the ballroom towards the stage. I whispered to Lindy to turn off the flashlight and it went dark. She whispered into my ear, let's get out of here. And I could hear her creeping away. I tried again to pull the statuette now out of the turkey, but now I was afraid of making noise. Besides, my fingers just couldn't get any purchase. The voice kept coming closer. until it felt like the guy was right there in front of me. It's not my problem, Larry. We need the logos to be on these menu cards. I don't care how you do it. Okay, then you do it yourself. That's right, you do it yourself. Bring them over yourself. I don't care how you do it. Just get them here this morning. 7:30 latest. We need those things here. The tables look fine. There are plenty of tables, trust me. Okay, I'll check that out. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna check that out right now. For the last part, his voice had been moving over to one side of the room. He must now have flicked a switch on the wall panel because a strong beam came on directly above me and a whirring noise like the air conditioner had come on. Only I realized the noise wasn't air conditioning but the curtains opening in front of me. Twice in my career, I've had it happen when I've been on stage. I've had a solo to play and suddenly it hits me I don't know how to start, which key I'm in and how the chords change. On both occasions this happened, I just froze up like I was in a still from a movie until one of the other boys stepped in to the rescue. It only happened twice in over 20 years of playing professionally. Anyway, this is how I started to react to the spotlight coming on above me and the curtains starting to move. I just froze. And I felt oddly detached. I felt a kind of mild curiosity concerning what I would see once the curtain was gone. What I saw was a ballroom, and from the vantage point of the stage, I could appreciate better the way the tables were laid out in two parallel lines all the way to the back. The spot above me was putting the room in the shade of a little, but I could make out the chandelier and the fancy ceiling. The cellophane man was an overweight, bald guy in a pale suit, open neck and open neck shirt. He must have walked away from the wall as soon as he had flicked the switch because now he was no more or less level with me. He had his phone pressed to his ears, and from his expression, you would guess he was listening to extra attention to what was being said at the other end. But I suppose he wasn't because his eyes were fixed on me. He kept looking at me and I kept looking at him, and the situation might have gone on indefinitely if he hadn't said into the phone, maybe in response to a query about why he had gone silent. It's alright, it's a man. There was a pause and then he said, I thought for a moment it was something else, but it's a man with bandaged head and wearing a nightgown. That's all it is. I see it now. It's just that he's got a chicken or something in the end of his arm. Straightening up, I instinctively started to stretch out my arm in shrugging motion. My right is still being in a turkey beyond the wrist, the sheer weight of the whole arrangement back down with a crash. But at least I had no more worries about concealment, so I went right at it, no whole barrels, in effort to extricate both my hand and the statuette. Meanwhile, the man went on talking to his phone. No, it's exactly what I'm saying. And now he's taking the chicken off. Oh, and he's producing something out of it? Hey, fella, what's that? An alligator? These last words he addressed to me with admirable nonchalance. But now I had the statuette with the statuette in my hands, and the turkey fell to the floor with a thud. As I hurried towards the darkness behind me, I heard the man say to his friend, How the hell do I know? Some kind of a magic show, maybe? I don't remember how we got back to our floor. I was lost again in the mess of curtains coming off the stage, and then she was there pulling me by the hand. Next thing, we were hurrying through the hotel, no longer caring how much noise we made or who saw us. Somewhere along the way, I left the statuette on a room service tray outside the bedroom, beside the remains of someone's supper. Back in her room, we flopped down into the sofa and laughed. We laughed till we were collapsing into each other. Then she got up, went to the window, and raised the blind. Now, it was now light outside. Though the morning was overcast, she went to her cabinet to mix drinks, the world's sexiest alcohol free cocktail, and brought me over a glass. I thought she would sit down with me, but she drifted back towards the window, sipping from her own glass. "You're looking forward to it, Steve?" she asked after a while. "To the bandages coming off?" "Yeah, I suppose. Even last week, I didn't think much about it. It seemed such a long way off, but now it's not so long." "That's right," I said. "It's not so long for me either." Then I said quietly, "Jesus." She sipped her drink and looked out of the window, and I heard her say, "Hey, sweetie, what's the matter with you?" "I'm fine, I just need to get some sleep, that's all." She, she kept looking at me for a while. "I tell you, Steve," she said, "eventually it's going to be fine. Boris is the best. You see." "Yeah." "Hey, what's wrong with you? Listen, this is my third time. Second time with Boris. It's just gonna be fine. You're gonna look great, just great. And your career from here is gonna rocket." "Maybe." "No maybe about it. It will make such a difference. Believe me, you'll be in magazines, you'll be on TV." I said nothing about it. "Hey, come on." She took a few steps towards me. "Cheer up, Dad. You're not still mad at me, are we? Are you? We were a great team down there, weren't we? And I'll tell you something else. From now on, I'm going to stay part of your team. You're a goddamn genius, and I'm going to make sure things go well for you." "It won't work, Lindy." I shook my head. "It won't work. Like hell it won't work. I'll talk to people who can do you a lot of good." I kept shaking my head. "I appreciate it, but it's no use. It won't work. It's never going to work. I should never have listened to Bradley." 1 second, please. My cat wants my attention. Huh? Go. Come see here. Yeah. He wants to go out, but the cleaners are here and the doors are open, so I don't really want him to go out and get lost and all that. Alright, let's continue. Hey, come on now. I may not be married to Tony anymore, but I still have lots of good friends in this town. Sure, Lindy, I know that, but it's no use. You see, Bradley, that's my manager. He talked me into this whole thing. I was an idiot to listen to him, but I couldn't help it. I was at my wit's end, and then he came up with this theory. He said my wife Helen, she had this scheme. She hasn't really left me. No, it was all part of this scheme she had. She was doing it all for me to make it possible for me to get this surgery, and then when the bandages came off, I have a new face and she will come back and it will be alright. That's what Bradley said. Even when he was saying it, I knew it was bullshit. But what could I do? It was some kind of hope at least. Bradley used it, and he used it. He's like that, you know. He's a low life. All he thinks is business, other than about the big leagues. What does he care if she comes back or not? I stopped, and she didn't say anything for a long time. Then she said, "Look, sweetie, listen. I hope your wife comes back. I really do. But if she doesn't, well, you've just got to start getting some perspective. She might be a great person, but life's so much bigger than just loving someone. You've got to get out there, Steve. Someone like you don't belong with the public. Look at me. When these bandages come off, am I really going to look the way I did 20 years ago? I don't know. But I'm going out there anyway and give it a go." She came over to me and shoved me on the shoulder. "Hey, you're just tired and you'll feel a lot better after some sleep. Listen, Boris is the best. He'll have fixed it for the both of us. You just see." I put down my glass on the table and stood up. "I guess you're right. Like you say, Boris is the best, and we were a good team down there. We were a great team down there. I I reached forward, put my hands on her shoulder, and kissed each of her bandaged cheeks. You have yourself a good sleep, I said. I'll come over soon and we'll play more chess. But after that morning, we didn't see much more of each other. When I thought about it later, it occurred to me that be some things said during the course of that night, things I should maybe have apologized about or at least tried to explain. At the time, though, once we had made it back to her room, we had been laughing together on the sofa. It hadn't seemed necessary or even right to bring all of that up again. When we parted that morning, I thought the two of us were well beyond that stage. Even so, I had seen how Lindy's could switch. Maybe later on, she thought back and got mad at me all over again. Who knows? Anyway, though I had expected a call from her later that day, it never came, and neither did one of the day after. Instead, I heard Tony Gardner records through the wall, playing at top volume one after the next. When I did eventually go round, maybe 4 days later, she was welcoming but distant. Like the first time, she talked a lot about her famous friends, though none of it about getting them to help with my career. Still, I didn't mind that. We gave chess a try, but her phone kept ringing and she would go into the bedroom to talk. Then 2 evenings ago, she knocked on my door and said that she was about to check out. Boris was pleased with her and had agreed to take the bandages off in her own house. We said our goodbyes in a friendly way, but it was like our real goodbyes had been said already. And that morning, right after our escapade, when I reached forward and kissed her on both cheeks. So that's the story of mine as Lindy Gardner's neighbor. I wish her well. As for me, it's 6 days till my own unveiling, and it's a lot longer still before I'm allowed to blow a horn. But I'm used to this life now, and I pass the hours quite contentedly. Yesterday I got a call from Helen asking how I was doing, and when I told her I'd gotten to know Lindy Gardner, she was mightily impressed. Hasn't she married again? She asked, and when I put her straight on that, she said, "Oh right, I must have been thinking about the other one, what's her name?" We talk about a lot about unimportant stuff, about what she watched on TV, how her friend had stopped by her with her baby. Then she said Prendergast was asking for me, and when she said that, there was a noticeable tightening in her voice. And I almost said, "Hello? Do I detect a note of irritation associated with lover boy's name?" But I didn't. I just say hi to him, and she didn't bring it up again. I probably imagined it anyway. For all I know, she was just angling for me to say how grateful I was to him. When she was about to go, I said, "I love you," in that fast, routine way you say at the end of each call with a spouse. There was a silence for a few seconds, and she said it back in the same routine. Then she was gone. God knows what that meant. There's nothing to do now, I guess, but wait for these bandages to come off. And then what? Maybe Lindy's right. Maybe like she says, I need some perspective. And life really is much bigger than loving a person. Maybe this really is a turning point for me, and the big league's waiting. Maybe she's right. That's the end of Nocturne, chapter 4 of Nocturnes by Kazuo Ishiguro. If everyone is okay, I'm going to continue with the last chapter called Cellists. It's not very long, so I don't think it deserves like another day of reading. I think it's probably going to be about half an hour. I'm going to take a quick bio break, and I think you guys are enjoying the cat purring. I'm gonna take a quick bio break, and I'm gonna be back real quick and real soon. Please hang in there for a moment, please? Hello, kitty catty. Can you stay here for a while? Okay. Okay, sit here. Just sit here. Just sit here. Just sit here. Okay? I'm gonna go to the toilet. Okay? I'll be right back, okay? He's following me. Sorry, guys. I tried to make him stay so that you guys can listen to the purring while I was gone. But he's not cooperating, and now he has ran off from my room, leaving me alone. Anyway. Oh, 11. Hey, you all there? Thank you for being here with me. We are on the last chapter of Kazuo Ishiguro's Nocturnes, title is Cellist. And we're gonna finish it off today, and then we're gonna start a new book on coming Friday. I think I'm going to give you guys choices to vote on Twitter, so that you guys have some kind of a some kind of a choice, even though it's not much of a choice because I'm the one who's deciding the two books. Anyway, all right. We are going to finish up Kazuo Ishiguro's Nocturnes, last chapter, Cellist. Oh my god, what am I doing? It was our third time playing the Godfather theme since lunch, so I was looking around the tourists seated across the piazza to see how many of them might have been there the last time we had played it. People don't mind hearing a favorite more than just once, but you can't have it happen too often or they start suspecting you don't have a decent repertoire. At this time of the year, it usually okay to repeat numbers. The first hint of an autumn wind and the ridiculous price of a coffee ensure a pretty steady turnover of customer. Anyway, that's why I'm studying the faces in the piazza and that's how I spotted Thibault. He was waving his arm and I thought at first he was waving to us. Then I realized that he was trying to attract a waiter. He looked older and he had put on some weight, but he wasn't hard to recognize. I gave Fabian an accordion right next to me and a little nudge nodded towards the young man, though I couldn't take either hands off my saxophone just then to point him out properly. That was when it came to me. Looking around the band, sorry, that was when it came home to me, looking around the band, that apart from me and Fabian, there was no one left in our lineup for that summer we had met Thibault. Okay, that was all of 7 years ago, but it was still a shock. Playing together every day like this, you come to think of the band as a kind of family, other members as your brothers, and if every now and then someone moves on, you want to think he'll always stay in touch, sending back postcards from Venice or London or wherever he has got to, maybe a Polaroid of the band he is in now, just like he's writing home to his old village. So a moment like that comes as an unwelcome reminder of how quickly things change. How the bosom pals of today become lost strangers tomorrow, scattered across Europe playing Godfather theme or autumn leaves in squares and cafes you'll never visit. When we finished our number, Fabian gave me a dirty look. I nodded and I nudged him during his special passage, not exactly a solo, but one of those rare moments when the violin and clarinet stop and I'm blowing just quiet note in the background and he's holding the tune together on his accordion. When I tried to explain, pointing out Thibault now stirring his coffee beneath the parasol, Fabian seemed to have trouble remembering him. In the end, he said, "Ah, yes, the boy with the cello. With the do you say cello or cello? Cello, right? Okay, cello. So is this cellist or cellist? I think it's cellist. Let me Google it. How do you pronounce cellist? Okay, got it now. I understand now. It is not cellist but cellist. I'm sorry, English is my second language. Hang on. Cellist. Sorry, unprofessional of me to find out how it's pronounced in the middle of the reading. Ah, the boy with the cello. I wonder if he's still with that American woman. Of course not, I say. Don't you remember that all came to an end at the time? Fabian shrugged, and his attention now on his sheet music. Then we were starting our next number. I was disappointed that Fabian hasn't shown more interest, but I suppose he had never been one of those particularly concerned about the young cellist. Fabian, you see, he's only ever played in bars and cafes, not like Giancarlo, our violin player at the time, or Ernesto, who was our bass player. They had formal training, so to them, someone like Thibault was always fascinating. Maybe there was a tiny bit of jealousy there, but of Thibault's top drawer musical education, of the fact that his future was still in front of him. But to be fair, I think it was just that they looked like to take the the Thibaut of this world under their wing, look after them a little, maybe prepare them for what lay ahead, so when the disappointments come, they wouldn't be so quite hard to take. By the way, I'm sorry. I forgot that I have changed my reading day to Thursday, which is tomorrow, and not Friday morning, because Friday morning I have things to do. Um, so I will do the little poll later today, this afternoon. Sorry, I forgot. That summer 7 years ago had been an unusually warm one, and even in this city of ours, there were times you could believe we were down on the Adriatic. We played outdoors for over 4 months under the cafe awning facing out to the piazza and all the tables, and I can tell you that it's hard work, even when 2 or 3 electric fans whirring around you. But it made for a good reason. Plenty of tourists passing through a lot from Germany and Austria, as well as natives fleeing from the heat on the beaches. And that was the summer we first started noticing Russians. Today you don't think twice about Russian tourists. They look like everyone else. But back then they were still rare enough to make you stop and stare. Their clothes are odd and they move around like new kids in school. The first time we saw Tibor, we were between sets, refreshing ourselves at the big table the cafe always kept aside for us. He was sitting nearby, continually getting up and repositioning his cello case to keep it in the shade. Look at him, Giancarlo said. A Russian music student with nothing to live on. What does he do? Decides to waste his money on coffees in the main square. No doubt a fool, Ernesto said, but a romantic fool, happy to starve so long as he can sit in our square all afternoon. He was thin, sandy haired, and wore unfashionable spectacles, huge frames that make him look like a panda. He turned up day after day, and I don't remember how exactly it happened, but after a while, we began to sit and talk with him in between sets. And sometimes, if he came to the cafe during our evening sessions, we'll call him over afterward, maybe treat him to some wine and crostini. We soon discovered Thibaut was Hungarian, not Russian, and that he was probably older than he looked, because he had already studied at the Royal Academy of Music in London and then spent 2 years in Vienna under Oleg Petrovic. After a rocky start with the old maestro, he learned to handle those legendary temper tantrums and had left Vienna with full confidence and with a series of engagements in prestigious, if small, venues around Europe. Then the concert began to get cancelled due to low demands. He had been forced to perform the music he hated. Accommodation had proved expensive or sordid. So in our city, well-organized arts and culture festival, which was what brought him here that summer, had been a much-needed boost. And when an old friend from the Royal Academy had offered him a free apartment for the summer down near the canal, he had taken it up without hesitation. He was enjoying our city, he told us, but cash was always a problem. And though he had the occasional recital, he was now having to think hard about his next move. It was then It was after a while of listening to these words that Jean-Claude and Ernesto decided that we should try and do something for him. And that was how Thibaut got to meet Mr. Kaufman from Amsterdam, a distant relative of Jean-Claude with connections in the hotel world. I remember that evening very well. It was still early in the summer, and Mr. Kaufman, Jean-Claude, Ernesto, all the rest of us sat indoors in the back room of the cafe listening to Thibaut play his cello. The young man must have realized he was auditioning for Mr. Kaufman, so it was interesting now to remember how keen he was to perform that night. He was obviously grateful to us, and you could see he was pleased when Mr. Kaufman promised to do what he could do for him on his return to Amsterdam. When people say Thibaut changed for the worse that summer, that his head got too big for his own good, that this was all down to that American woman, well, maybe there's something in that. Thibaut had become aware of the woman was sipping his first coffee of the day. At that moment, the piazza was pleasantly cool, and the cafe end remained shaded for much of the morning. and the paving stones were still wet from the city workers' hoses. Having gone without breakfast, he would watch enviously while at the next table she ordered series of fruit juice concoctions, then apparently on a whim. For it wasn't yet 10 o'clock, a bowl of steamed mussels. He had the vague impression the woman was, for her part, stealing glances back at him, but hadn't thought too much about it. She looked very pleasant, beautiful even, he told us at the time. But as you see, she's 10, 15 years older than me, so why would I think anything was going on? He had forgotten about her and was preparing to get back to his room for a couple of hours of practice before his neighbor came in for lunch and turned on that radio, and suddenly there was that woman standing in front of him. She was beaming broadly and everything in her manner suggesting they already knew each other. In fact, it was only his natural shyness that stopped him greeting her. Then she placed a hand on his shoulder as though he had failed some test but was forgiven anyway. I was at your recital the other day at the San Lorenzo. Thank you, he replied, even as he realized how foolish this might sound. Then, when the woman just went on beaming down at him, he said, Oh yes, the San Lorenzo church. That's right, I did indeed give a recital there. The woman laughed and then suddenly seated herself in the chair in front of him. You say that you have had a whole string of arranged engagement lately, she said, a hint of mockery in her voice. If that's so, I've given you a misleading impression. The recital you attended was my only one in 2 months. But you're just starting out, she said. You're doing fine to get any engagement at all. And that was a good crowd the other day. A good crowd? There was only 24 people. It was afternoon. It was good for an afternoon recital. I should not complain. Still, it wasn't a good crowd. Tourists with nothing better to do. Oh, you shouldn't be so dismissive. After all, I was there. I was one of those tourists. Then he began to redden, for he hadn't meant to give offense. She touched his arm and said with a smile, You're just starting out. Don't worry about audience size. That's not why you're performing. Oh? Then why am I performing if not for an audience? That's not what I said. What I'm saying to you is that at this stage of your career, 20 in the audience or 200, it doesn't matter. Should I tell you why not? Because you've got it. I have it? You have it. Most definitely. You have potential. She stifled a brusque laugh that came to his lips. He felt more reproach towards himself than for her, for he had expected her to say genius or at least talent, and it immediately struck him how deluded he had been to expect such comment. But the woman was continuing. At this stage, what you're doing is waiting for that one person to come over and hear you, and that one person might just easily be in a room like that one on Tuesday in a crowd of just 20 people. Well, there were 24 people, not including the organizers. 24, whatever. What I'm saying is that numbers doesn't matter right now. What matters is that one person. You mean the one person from the recording company? Recording? Oh, no. That will take care of itself. No. I mean the person who will make you blossom. The person who will hear you and realize that you are not just another well-trained mediocrity. That even though you are still in your chrysalis, with just a little help you'll emerge as a butterfly. I see. By any chance, might you be this person? Oh, come on. I can see you are a proud young man, but it doesn't look to me you have so many mentors falling over themselves to get you. At least not ones of my rank. It occurred to him that he was in the midst of making a colossal blunder, and he considered the woman's features carefully. She had now removed her sunglasses. You could see her face that was essentially gentle and kind, yet with upset. and perhaps anger not too far away. He went on looking at her, hoping he would soon recognize her, but in a way she was forced to say, I'm sorry, you are perhaps a distinguished musician? I'm Eloise McCormack, she announced with a smile and held out her hand. Unfortunately, the name meant nothing to Thibault, and he found himself in a quandary. His first instinct was to feign astonishment, and he actually said, Really? This is quite amazing. Then he pulled himself together, realizing such bluffing was not only dishonest but likely to lead to embarrassing exposure within seconds. So he sat up straight and said, Miss Cormack, it's an honor to meet you. I realize this might seem unbelievable to you, but I beg you to make allowances for both my youth and for the fact that I grew up in the former Eastern Bloc behind the Iron Curtain. There were many film stars and political personalities who are household names in the West, of whom even today I remain ignorant. So you must forgive me that I do not know precisely who you are. Well, that's commendably frank. Despite her words, she was clearly affronted, and her ebullience seems to drain away. After an awkward moment, she said again, You are a distinguished musician, yes? She nodded, her gaze drifting across the square. Once again, I must apologize, he said. It was indeed an honor to meet someone like you. Should come to my recital. May I ask your instrument? Like you, she said quickly. Cello. That's why I came in. Even if it's a humble little recital of yours, I can't help myself. I can't walk by. I have a sense of missions, I guess. A mission? I don't know what's it called. I want all cellists to play well, to play beautifully. So often they play in a misguided way. Excuse me, but it's just we cellists who are guilty of these misguided performances? Or do you refer to all musicians? Maybe other instruments too. But I'm a cellist, so I listen to other cellists. And when I listen to something going wrong, the other day I saw some young musician playing in the lobby of the Museo Civico and people were just rushing past them. But I had to stop and listen, and it was all I could do to stop myself going right up to them and telling them they were making errors. Not errors exactly, but well, it just wasn't there. It wasn't nearly there. But there you go. I asked too much. I know I shouldn't expect everyone to come up to the mark I set for myself. They were just music students, I guess. She leaned back in the seat for the first time and gazed at some children over by the central mountain, noisily soaking one another. Eventually, Thibault said, You felt this urge also on Tuesday, perhaps? The urge to come up to me and make suggestions? She smiled, and then the next moment her face became very serious. I did, she said. I really did. Because I heard you and I could hear the way I once was. Forgive me, this was going to sound rude, but the truth is you are not quite on the correct path just now. And when I heard you, I just so wanted to help you find it sooner or later. Sooner rather than later. I must point out, I've been tutored by Oleg Petrovic. Thibault said this flatly and waited for her response. To his surprise, he saw her trying to suppress a smile. Petrovic, yes, she said. Petrovic in his face was
Strange.
Oh, thank you. Oh my god. I'll take a sip of tea as well. Petrovic, yes, she said. Petrovic in his days was a very respectable musician, and I know that to this day he must still appear as a considerable figure, but to many of us now, his ideas, his whole approach, he shook his she shook her head and spread out her hands. Then, as Thibault, suddenly speechless with fury, continued to stare at her, she once again placed a hand on his arm. I've said enough. I've no right. I'll leave you in peace. She rose to her feet, and this action soothed his anger. Thibault had a generous temperament, and it wasn't in his nature to remain cross with people for long. Besides, what the woman had just said about his old teacher had struck an uncomfortable chord deep within him, thoughts he had not quite dared to express himself. So when he looked up at her, his face showed confusion more than anything else. Look, she said. You're probably too angry with me just now to think about this, but I would like to help you. If you do decide you want to talk this over, I'm staying over there at the Excelsior. This hotel, the grandest in our city, stands in the opposite end of the square from the cafe. She now pointed out to Thibault, smiled, and began to walk off towards it. He was still watching her when she turned suddenly near the central fountain, startling some pigeons, gave him a wave, then continued on her way. Over the next 2 days, he found himself thinking about the encounter many times. He saw again the smirk around her mouth as he so proudly announced Petrovic's name, and felt the anger rising afresh. But on reflection, he could see he had not really been angry on his old teacher's behalf. It was rather that he had become accustomed to the idea that Petrovic's name would always produce a certain impact, that it would be relied upon to induce attention and respect. In other words, he would have to depend on it as a sort of certificate he could brandish around the world. What had so disturbed him on the possibility was this certificate did not carry nearly the weight he had supposed. He kept remembering, too, her parting invitation, and during those hours he sat in the square, he found his gaze returning to the far end, the grand entrance of the Excelsior Hotel, where a steady stream of taxis and limousines drew up in the front of the doorman. Finally, on the third day, after his conversation, Eloise McCormack, he crossed the piazza, entered the marble lobby, and asked the front desk to call her extension. The reception spoke into the phone and asked his name. Then, after a short exchange, passed the receiver to him. I'm sorry, he heard her voice say. I forgot to ask you your name the other day. It took me a while to figure out who you are, but of course, I haven't forgotten you. As a matter of fact, I've been thinking about you an awful lot. There's so much I would like to talk through with you, but we have to do this right. Do you have your cello? No, of course you don't. Why don't you come back in an hour? Exactly an hour. This time, bring your cello. I'll be waiting here for you. When he returned to the Excelsior with his instrument, the receptionist immediately indicated the elevators and told him Miss McCormack was expecting him. The idea of entering her room, even in the middle of the afternoon, had struck him as awkwardly intimate, and he was relieved to find a large suite, the bedroom closed off entirely from view. The tall French windows had boarded shutters, for a moment folded back so the lace curtains moved in breeze, so he could see that by the stepping through onto the balcony he had find himself looking over at the square. The room itself, with its rough stone walls and dark wood floor, had almost a monastic air about it, softened only partially by the flowers, cushions, and antique furniture. She, in contrast, was dressed in t-shirt, tracksuit, trousers, and trainers, as though she had just came in from running. She welcomed him with a little ceremony, no offer of tea or coffee, and said to him, Play for me. Play me something you played at your recital. She had indicated a polished upright chair carefully placed in the center of the room. so he sat down on it and unpacked his cello. Rather disconcertingly, she set herself in front of one of the big windows so he could see her almost exactly in profile and continued to stare into the space before her all the time he tuned out. Her posture didn't alter as he began to play, and when he came to an end of his first piece, he didn't say a word, so he moved quickly to another piece, then another. Half an hour went by, then a whole hour, and something to do with the shaded room and its austere acoustic, the afternoon sunlight diffused with the drifting lace curtain, the background hubbub rising from the piazza, and above all, her presence drew from him notes that held new depth, new suggestions. Towards the end of the hour, he was convinced that he had more than fulfilled her expectations, and when he had finished his last piece, and they sat in silence for several moments, she at last turned in her chair towards him and said, "Yes, I understand exactly where you are. It won't be easy, but you can do it. Definitely you can do it. Let's start with the Britain. Play it again. Just the first movement, then we'll talk. We can work through this together, a little at a time." When he heard this, he felt an impulse to pack away his instrument and leave. But then, some other instinct, perhaps it was simple curiosity, perhaps something deeper, overcame his pride and compelled him to start playing again the piece she had requested. When, after several bars, she stopped him and began to talk, he again felt the urge to leave. He resolved, just out of politeness, to endure this uninvited tutorial for the most another 5 minutes, but he found himself staying a little longer than longer again. He played some more, she talked again. Her words would always strike him initially as pretentious and far too abstract, and when he tried to accommodate their thrust into his playing, he was surprised by the effect. Before he realized, another hour had gone by. "I could suddenly see something," he explained to us. "A garden I had not yet entered. There it was, in a distance. There were things in the way, but for the first time it was a garden that I had never seen before." The sun had almost set when he finally left the hotel, crossed the piazza to the cafe tables, allowed himself the luxury of an almond cake and whipped cream, and a sense of elation barely contained. For the next several days, he returned to her hotel each afternoon, always came away, if not with the same sense of revelation he had experienced on the first visit, then at least filled with energy, fresh energy and hope. Her comments grew bolder, and to an outsider, had there been one, might have seemed presumptuous, but Thibault was no longer capable of regarding her interventions in such terms. His fear now was that her visit to the city would come to an end, and this thought began to haunt him, disturbing his sleep and casting a shadow as he walked out into the square after another exhilarating session. But whenever he tentatively raised his question with her, the replies were always vague and far from reassuring. "Oh, just until it gets chilly for me," she had once said. Or another time, "I guess I'll stay as long as I'm not bored here." But what's she like herself? We kept asking him. On the cello, what's she like? The first time we raised the question, Thibault didn't answer us properly, just saying something like she told us she was a virtuoso right from the start, then changing the subject. But when he realized we wouldn't let it go, he sighed and began to explain to us. The fact was, even at the first session, Thibault had been curious to hear her play, but had been too intimidated to ask her to do so. He had felt a tiny nudge of suspicion when looking around her room. He had seen no sign of her own cello. After all, it was perfectly natural she wouldn't bring a cello with her on her holiday. But then again, it was possible there was an instrument, perhaps a rented one, in the bedroom behind the closed door. But as he had continued to return to the suite for further sessions, the suspicions had grown. He had done his best to push them out of his mind, for the for by this time he had lost any lingering reservations about their meetings. The mere fact that she was listening to him seemed to draw fresh layers from his imagination, and in the hours between these afternoon sessions, he had often found himself preparing a piece in his mind, anticipating her comments, her shakes of head, her frown, the affirming nod, and the most gratifying of all, those instances when she became transported by a passage she was playing, when her eyes would close and her hands, almost against her will, began shadowing the movement he was making. All the same, the suspicions wouldn't go away. Then one day he came to the room and the bedroom door had been left ajar. He could see more stone walls, what looked to be a medieval four-poster bed, but no trace of a cello. Would a virtuoso, even on holiday, go so long without touching her instrument? But this question too he pushed out of his mind. As the summer went on, they began to prolong their conversations by coming over to the cafe together after their sessions, and she would buy him coffees, cakes, sometimes a sandwich. Now, their talk was no longer just about music, though everything was always seemed to come back to it. For instance, she might question him about the German girl she had been close to in Vienna. "But you must understand, she was never my girlfriend," he would tell her. "We were never like that." "You mean you never became physically intimate? That means you weren't in love with her." "No, Miss Eloise, that's incorrect. I was fond of her, certainly, but we're not in love." "But when you played the Rachmaninoff yesterday, you were remembering an emotion. It was love, romantic love." "No, that is absurd. She was a good friend, but we did not love." "But you played a passage like it's a memory of love. You're so young, yet you know the desertion, abandonment. That's why you play the third movement the way you do. Most cellists, they play it with joy. But for you, it was not about joy. It was about the memory of a joyful time that had gone forever." They had conversations like this, and he was often tempted to question her in return. But just as he had never dared to ask Petrovic a personal question the whole time he studied under him, he now felt unable to ask anything of substance about her. Instead, he dwelt on the little things she let fall: how she now lived in Portland, Oregon, how she how she had moved there from Boston 3 years ago, how she disliked Paris because of its sad association but drew back from asking her to expand. She would laugh much more easily now than in the first days of their friendship, and now developed the habit, when they stepped out of the Excelsior, crossed the piazza, of linking her arms through his. This was the point at which we started to notice them, a curious couple, he looking so much younger than he actually was, she looking in some ways motherly, or other ways like a flirty actress, as Ernesto put it. In the days before we got to talking to Tibor, we used to waste a lot of idle chat on them, the way men in bands do. If they stroll past us arm in arm, we'll look at each other and say, "What do you think? They have been at it, yes?" But having enjoyed the speculation, we had then shrugged and admit it was unlikely. They just didn't have the atmospheres of lovers. And once we came to know Tibor, he began telling us about those afternoons in her suites, and none of us thought to tease him about making any funny suggestions. Then, one afternoon, they were sitting in the square with cakes and coffee. She began to talk about a man who wanted to marry her. His name was Peter Henderson, and he ran a successful business in Oregon selling golfing equipment. He was smart, kind, well respected in the community. He was 6 years older than Eloise, but that was hardly old. They were there were two children from his first marriage, but things has been settled amicably. So now you know what I'm doing here, she said with a nervous laugh he had never heard from her before. I'm hiding out. Peter has no idea where I am. I guess it's cruel of me. I called him last Thursday and told him I was in Italy, but I didn't say which city. He was mad at me and guessed he's entitled to be. So, said Tibor, you're spending the summer contemplating your future? Not really, I'm just hiding. Do you not love this Peter? She shrugged. He's a nice man. I don't have a lot of other offers on the table. This Peter, is he a music lover? Oh, where I live now, he would certainly count as one. After all, he goes to concerts, and afterwards in the restaurant, he said a lot of nice things about what we heard. I guess he's a music lover, but he appreciates you. He knows it won't always be easy living with a virtuoso. She gave a sigh. That's been the problem for me all my life. It won't be easy for you either. But you and me, we don't really have a choice. We have our path to follow. She didn't bring Peter up again, but now, after that exchange, a new dimension had opened in their relationship. When she had those quiet moments of thoughts after he had finished playing, or when sitting together in the piazza, she became distant, staring off the past neighborhood parasols. There was nothing uncomfortable about it, and far from being ignored, he knew his presence there beside her was appreciated. One afternoon, when he finished playing a piece, she asked him to play again one short passage, just 8 bars from near the close. He did as asked and saw little furrows remain on her forehead. That doesn't sound like us, she said, shaking her head. As usual, she was sitting in profile to him, in front of the big window. The rest of what you played was good, but all the rest of it, that was us. But that passage there, she did a little shudder. He played it again, differently, though not all sure what he was aiming for, and wasn't surprised to see her shake her head again. I'm sorry, he said. You must express yourself more clearly. I do not understand this. Not us. You mean you want me to play it myself? Is that what you are saying? She had spoken calmly, but now she's facing him. He was aware of the tension descending on them. She was looking at him steadily, almost challengingly, waiting for his answer. Eventually, he said, No, I'll try again. But you're wondering why I don't play it myself, aren't you? Borrow your instrument, I demonstrate and what I mean. No. He shook his head, and with what he hoped looked like nonchalance. No, I think it worked well. What we have always done. You suggest verbally and then I play. That way is not like I copy. Your words open windows for me. If you played yourself, the window would not open. I would just copy. She considered this and then said, You're probably right. Okay, I'll try to express myself a little bit more. And for the next few minutes, she talked about the distinction between epilogues and bridging passages. Then he played those bars once more and she smiled and nodded approvingly. But from that little exchange, something shadowy had entered their afternoon. Perhaps it had been there all along, but now it was out of the bottle and hovered between them. Another time, when they were sitting in the piazza, he had been telling her the story of how the previous owner of his cello had come by it in the Soviet Union days by bartering several pairs of American jeans. When he had finished the story, she looked at him with a curious half smile and said, It's a good instrument. It has a fine voice. But since I never so much as touched it, I can't really judge it. He knew then she was again moving towards the territory, and he quickly looked away. For someone your stature, it would not be an adequate instrument. Even for me, now it's barely adequate. He found he could no longer relax during conversation with her, for fear she would hijack it and bring it back into his territory. Even during their most enjoyable exchanges, a part of his mind would have remained on guard, ready to shut her off if she had found yet another opening. Even so, he couldn't divert her every time. And he simply pretended not to hear when she said things like, "Oh, it would be so much easier if I could just play it for you." Towards the end of September, there was now a chill in the breeze. Jean Collot received a phone call from Mr. Kaufman in Amsterdam. There was a vacancy for a cellist in a small chamber group at a five-star hotel in the center of the city. The group played in the minstrel gallery overlooking the dining room 4 evenings a week. The musicians also had other light non-musical duty elsewhere in the hotel. Board and accommodations terms were available. Mr. Kaufman had immediately remembered Tibor, and the post was being held open for him. We gave Tibor the news right away and in the cafe at the very evening of Mr. Kaufman's call. And I think we were all taken aback by the coolness of Tibor's response. It was certainly a contrast to his attitude earlier in the summer when we fixed up his audition with Mr. Kaufman. Jean Collot, in particular, became really angry. "So, what is it you have to think so carefully for?" he demanded of the boy. "What were you expecting, Carnegie Hall?" "I'm not ungrateful. Nevertheless, I must give this matter some thought. To play for people while they chat and eat, and these other hotel duties, is this really suitable for someone like me?" Jean Collot always lost his temper too quickly. Now, the rest of us had to stop him from grabbing Thibault by his jacket and shouting to his face. Some of us even felt obliged to take the boy's side, pointing out it was his life after all, and that he was under no obligations to take any job he was uncomfortable with. Things eventually calmed down, and Thibault then began to agree the job had good points if viewed as temporary measure. And our city, he pointed out, rather insensitively would have become a backwater once the tourist season was over. Amsterdam was at least a cultural center. "I'll give this matter a careful thought," he said in the end. "Perhaps you will kindly tell Mr. Kaufman I will give him my decision within 3 days." Jean Collot was hardly satisfied by this. He had expected fawning gratitude after all, but he went off all the same to call Mr. Kaufman. During the whole of this discussion that evening, Eloise McCormack had not been mentioned, but it was clear to all of us her influence was behind everything Tibor had been saying. "That woman turned him into an arrogant little shit," Ernesto said after Tibor had left. "Let him take that attitude with him to Amsterdam. He'll soon get a few corners knocked out of him." Tibor had never told Eloise about his audition with Mr. Kaufman. He had been on the verge of doing so many times, but he has always drawn back, and the deeper their friendship go. Alrighty! Thank you, Tochie! Sorry for running it so long today. I just trying to finish up the book so we can start a new one tomorrow. And thank you for the hydration redemption, the end. Thank you, thank you. The deeper their friendship had grown, the more it seemed a betrayal that he had ever agreed to do such a thing. So naturally, Tibor felt no inclination to consult Eloise about the latest developments or even allow her any inkling of them. But he had never been good at concealment, and this decision to keep a secret from her had unexpected results. It was unusually warm that afternoon. He had come to the hotel as usual and begun to play for her some new pieces he had been preparing, but after barely 3 minutes, she made him stop. "There's something wrong. I thought it when you first came in. I know you so well, Tibor." Oh, wait, hang on. I have a phone call. Sorry, I'm back. I got a phone call for a parcel. Alright, sorry. We ran out a bit long, but at least it's not 5 hours of I am a cat last chapter. Okay, let's go on. There's something wrong. I thought it when you first came in. I know you so well, Tibor. I could tell almost from the way you knock on the door. Now I've heard you play, I know for certain it's useless. You can't hide it from me. He was in some dismay, lowering his bow, was about to make a clean breast of everything when she put her hand and said, "This is something we cannot keep running away from. You always try to avoid it, but it's no use. I want to discuss it the whole of this past week. I've been wanting to discuss it." "Really?" He looked at her in astonishment. "Yes," she said, and moved her chair so that for the first time she was directly facing him. "I never intended to deceive you, Tibor. These last few weeks, they haven't been the easiest for me, and you have been such a dear friend. I would so hate it if you thought I never meant to play some cheap trick on you. No, please, don't try to stop me this time. I want to say this. If you give me that cello right now and ask me to play, I would have to say no, I can't do it. Not because the instrument is not good enough. Nothing like that. But if you are thinking I'm a fake, that I'm somehow pretended to be something I am not, then I want to tell you you are mistaken. Look at everything we have achieved together. Isn't that proof enough I'm not fake anything? Yes, I told you I was a virtuoso. Well, let me explain what I meant by that. What I meant was that I was born with a special gift, just as you were. You and me, we have something most other cellists will never have, no matter how hard they practice. I was able to recognize it in you the moment I first heard you in that church, and in some way you must have recognized it in me too. That's why you decided to come to this hotel that very first time. There aren't many like us, Tibor, and we recognize each other. The fact that I have not yet learned to play the cello doesn't really change anything. You have to understand, I am a virtuoso, but I am also one who is yet to be unwrapped. You too. You are still not entirely unwrapped. That's what I've been doing these past few weeks. I've been trying to help you shed those layers, but I've never tried to deceive you. 99% of cellists, there's nothing under those layers. There's nothing to unwrap. So people like us, we have to help each other. When we see each other in a crowded square, wherever, we have to reach out for one another because there's so few of us. He noticed that tears had appeared in her eyes, but her voice had remained steady. She now fell silent and turned away from him again. "So believe yourself to be a special cellist," he said for a moment. "A virtuoso. The rest of us, Miss Eloise, we have to take our courage in our hands, and we unwrap ourselves, as you put it, all the time, unsure what we will find underneath. Yet you do not care for this unwrapping. You do nothing, but you are so sure you are this virtuoso. Please don't be angry. I know it sounds a little crazy, but that's how it is. It's the truth. My mother, she recognized my gift straight away when I was tiny, and I'm grateful to her for that at least. But the teachers she found for me when I was 4, when I was 7, when I was 11, they were no good. My mom didn't know that, but I did. Even as a small girl, I had this instinct. I knew I had to protect my gift against people who, however well intentioned they were, could completely destroy it. So I shut them out. You have got to do the same, Tibor. Your gift is precious. Forgive me, Tibor interrupted, now more gently. You say you played cello as a child, but today I have not touched the instrument since I was 11. Not since the day I explained to Mom I couldn't continue with Mr. Rolfe, and she understood. She agreed it was much better to do nothing. And wait, the crucial was not to damage my gift. My day may still come true. Okay, sometimes I think I left it too late. I'm 41 years old now, and at least I haven't damaged what I was born with. I've met so many teachers over the years who said they would help me, but I saw through them. Sometimes it's difficult to tell, Tibor, even for us. These teachers, they are so professional. They talk so well. You listen, and at first you are full. You think at least at last someone to help me. He's one of us. Then you realize he's nothing of the kind. That's when you have to be tough and shut yourself off. Remember that, Tibor. It's always better to wait. Sometimes I feel bad about it that I still haven't unveiled my gift, but I haven't damaged it, and that's what counts. He eventually played for her a couple of pieces he had prepared, but they couldn't retrieve their usual mood and they ended the session early. Down the piazza, they drank their coffee, speaking little until he told her of his plans to leave the city for a few days. He had always wanted to explore the surrounding countryside, he said, so now he had arranged a short holiday for himself. It will do you good, she said quietly, but don't stay away too long. We still have a lot to do. He reassured her he'll be back within a week at most. Nevertheless, there was still something uneasy in her manner as they parted. He had not been entirely truthful about his going away. He hadn't yet made any arrangement, but after leaving Eloise that afternoon, he went home and made several phone calls, eventually reserving a bed at a youth hostel at the mountains near the Umbrian border. He came to see us at the cafe at night, and as well as telling us about his trip, we gave him all kinds of conflicting advice about where to go and what to see. He rather sheepishly asked Giancarlo to let Mr. Kaufman know that he would like to take up the job offer. What else can I do? He said to us. By the time I get back, I'll have no money left at all. Tibor had a pleasant enough break in our countryside. He didn't tell us much about it, other than he had made some friends with some German hikers, and that he had spent more than he could afford in the hillside trattorias. He came back after a week, looking visibly refreshed, but anxiously to establish that Eloise McCormack had not left the city during his absence. The tourist crowd were beginning to thin by then, and the cafe waiters were bringing out terrace heaters to place among the outdoor tables. On the afternoon of his return, at their usual time, Tibor took his cello to the Excelsior again and was pleased to discover not only that Eloise was there waiting for him, but that he obviously missed him. She welcomed him with emotion, just as someone else, in a surfeit of affection, might have plied him with food or drink. She pushed him onto his usual chair and began impatiently unpacking the cello, saying, "Play for me, come on, just play!" They had a wonderful afternoon together. He had worried beforehand how things would be after her confession and the way they last parted, but all the tension seemed simply to have evaporated, and the atmosphere between them felt better than ever. Even when he had finished a piece, she closed her eyes and embarked on a long, stringent critique of his performance. He felt no resentment, only a hunger to understand her as fully as possible. The next day, the day after, it was the same, relaxed, at times even jokey. He felt he had never played better in his life. They didn't allude at all to the conversation before he had gone away, nor did he ask about his break in the countryside. They only talked about music. Then, on the fourth day after his return, a series of small mishaps, perhaps a leaking toilet cistern in his room, prevented him from going to Excelsior at the usual hour. By the time he came past the cafe, the light was fading, and the waiters had lit the candles inside the little glass bowls, and we were a couple numbers into our dinner set. He waved to us and went across the square towards the hotel, his cello making him look like he was limping. He noticed the receptionist hesitated slightly before phoning to her. Then, when she opened the door, she greeted him warmly, but somehow quickly somehow differently. Before he had a chance to speak, she said quickly, Thibaut, I'm so glad you have come. I was just about to tell Peter everything about you. That's right, Peter's found me at last. Then she called into the room, Peter, he's here. Thibaut's here, and with his cello too. And as Thibaut stepped into the room, a large, shambling, graying man in pale polo shirt rose to his feet with a smile. He gripped Thibaut's hand very firmly and said, Oh, I've heard all about you. Eloise is convinced you're gonna be a big star. Peter's persistent, she was saying. I knew he would find me in the end. No hiding from me, said Peter. Then he was pulling up a chair for Thibaut, pouring him a glass of champagne from an ice bucket on the cabinet. Come on, Thibaut, help us celebrate our reunion. Thibaut sipped the champagne, aware that Peter had pulled up for him by chance on his usual cello chair. Eloise had vanished somewhere for a while. Thibaut and Peter made conversation, their glasses in their hands. Peter seemed kindly and asked a lot of questions. How had it been for Thibaut to grow up in a place like Hungary? Had it been a shock when he had first come to the West? I would love to play an instrument, Peter said. You're so lucky. I would like to learn. A little too late now, though, I guess. Oh, you can never say too late, Thibaut said. You're right. Never say too late. Too late is always just an excuse. No, the truth is, I'm a busy man. I tell myself I'm too busy to learn French, to learn an instrument, to read War and Peace. All the things I wanted to do, Eloise used to play when she was a kid. I guess she told you about that. Oh, yes, she did. I understand. She has a lot of natural gifts. Oh, she sure does. Anyone who knows her will be able to see that. She has such sensitivity. She's the one who should be having those lessons. Me, I'm just Mr. Banana Fingers. He held up his hands and laughed. I would like to play the piano, but what can you do with hands like this? Great for digging earth. That's what my people did for generations. But that lady, he indicated towards the door with his glass. Now she's got sensitivity. Eventually, Eloise emerged from the bedroom in a dark evening dress and a lot of jewelry. Peter, don't bore Tibor, she said. He's not interested in golf. Peter held out his hand and looked pleadingly at Tibor. Now tell me, did I say a single word to you about golf? Tibor said he should be going, that could see that he was keeping the couple from their dinner. This was met by protests from both of them. And Peter said, Now look at me. Do I look like I'm dressed for dinner? And though Tibor thought he looked perfectly decent, he gave a laugh that seemed expected of him. Then Peter said, You can't leave without playing something. I've been hearing so much about your playing. Confused, Tibor had actually started to unfasten his cello case when Eloise said firmly, some new quality in her voice. Tibor's right. Time's getting on. The restaurant in this town, they don't keep your table if you don't come on time. Peter, get yourself dressed, maybe a shave too. I'll see Tibor out. I want to speak to him in private. In the lift, they smiled affectionately at each other, but didn't speak. When they came outside, they found the piazza lit up for the night. Local kids, back from their holidays, were kicking balls, chasing each other around the fountain. The evening passeggiata was in full flow. I suppose our music would have come drifting through the air to where they were standing. Well, that's it, she said eventually. He has found me. So I guess he deserved me. He's a most charming person, Thibaut said. You intend to return to America now? In a few days, I suppose I will. You intend to marry? I guess so. For an instant, she looked at him earnestly, then looked away. I guess so, she said again. I wish you much happiness. He's a kind man, also a music lover. That's important for you. Yes, that's important. When you're getting ready just now, we're talking not about golf, but of music lessons. Oh, really? You mean for him or for me? For both. However, I don't suppose there will be many teachers in Portland, Oregon who could teach you. She gave a laugh. Like I said, it's difficult for people like us. Yes, I appreciate that. After the last few weeks, I appreciate that more than ever. Then he added, Miss Eloise, there's something I must tell you before we part. I will soon leave for Amsterdam, where I've been given a position in a last hotel. You're going to be a porter? No. I will play in a small chamber group in the hotel dining room. We will entertain hotel guests while they eat. He was watching her carefully and saw something ignite behind her eyes then fade away. He laid a hand on his arm and smiled. Well then, good luck. Then she added, those hotel guests, they've got some treat coming up. I hope so. For a moment, they remained standing there together just beyond the pool of light casting by the front of the hotel, the bulky cello between them. And I hope so, he said. You'll be very happy with Mr. Peter. I hope so too, she said and laughed again. Then she kissed him on the cheek and gave him a quick hug. You take care of yourself, she said. Thibault thanked her. Then, before he quite realized it, he was watching her walking back towards the Excelsior. Thibault left our city soon after that. The last time we had drinks with him, he was clearly grateful to Giancarlo and Ernesto for his job, and to all of us for our friendship, but I couldn't help getting the impression he was being a little aloof with us. A few of us thought this, not just me, though Giancarlo, typical, now took Thibault's side, saying the boy's just been feeling excited and nervous about this next step in his life. Excited? How can he be excited? Ernesto said. He spent the summer being told he's a genius, a hotel job. It's a calm down. Sitting talking to us, that's a calm down too. He's a nice kid at the start of the summer, but after what that woman's done to him, I'm glad we are seeing the back of him. Like I said, this happened 7 years ago. Giancarlo, Ernesto, and all the boys from that time except me and Fabian, they have all moved on. Until I spotted him in the piazza the other day. I hadn't thought about our young Hungarian maestro for a long time. He wasn't so hard to recognize. He put on weight certainly, but was looking a lot thicker around the neck. And the way he gestured his finger calling for waiter, there was something, maybe I imagine, something of the impatience, the offhandedness that comes with the kind of bitterness. But maybe that's unfair. After all, I only glimpsed him. Even so, it seemed to me he has lost the youthful anxiety to please and those careful manners he had back then. Nothing bad in this world, you might say. I would have gone over and talked with him, but by the end of our set he has already gone. For all I know, he was here only for the afternoon. He was wearing a suit, nothing very grand, just a regular one. So perhaps he has a day job now behind a desk somewhere? Maybe he had a business to do nearby and came through our city just for old time's sake, who knows? If he comes back to the square and I'm not playing, I'll go over and have a talk and have a word with him. And that is the end of Kazuo Ishiguro's Nocturnes, last chapter, Cellists. And I screw up that last line too. Oh my god. Thank you for the gift sub, by the way. Bit. Thank you for listening in today. It's ran on for 3.5 hours almost, but thank you so much for being here with me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so what I'm gonna do later is to choose 2 books. I don't know, should I do... Oh my god, redemption already? Jeez. Alright. Calm down, boys and girls. Hang on. Okay, we'll do a love code. Exia, choose from page 10 to page 128 as usual. And then Yujung, give me your instructions. Yep, perfect. Oh, Yu Jung knows what's up. 97, 97, 97, 97. A love quote for Exia today. There are no risks in love. As you find out for yourself, people have been searching for and finding each other for thousands of years. That is the quote. I repeat it. There are no risks in love. As you find out for yourself, people have been searching and finding each other for thousands of years. There you go. That's a love quote for my Exia. And it's tarot time. Yu Jung is very interested in tarot, huh? Right. Okay, Yu Jung wants the card of the day. Shuffle 10 times and just pick from the top. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Are you ready? Your card of the day is, oh my god, Ace of Pentacle. Very, very good card. Ace of Pentacle. I realize that you get pentacles a lot. You're very involved in like money stuff, it seems. Money, possessions, resources. You're very involved in those things somehow. What do you do? Ace of Pentacles. Keywords: a financial start, opportunity, focus, and ambition. So, in the picture, if you Google the picture of Ace of Pentacles, it's a picture of a hand holding a huge coin. So that means abundance. There is abundance of opportunity. It could be money, it could be opportunity. An ace being the first card amongst the numbered pentacles, it could also mean that it might be representing a beginning of a project or a venture or an undertaking, or there's something that you need to do in the material world. Yeah, so you might have, I don't know, it could be a start of something. So I'm not sure what you're into today, but this card definitely means something that you are going to do something that in regards of a project, a work, or a partnership, a start of something, a start for something. Yeah, because of the Ace of Pentacles. So that there's an opportunity for you to start something today. So if you recognize it today, then go ahead and don't hesitate and just go ahead and pick it up. Focus and pick it up and do it. Yeah, that's what the card is saying basically. There might be an opportunity open up for you today. So if you recognize it, go ahead and just do it. Yeah. You get good cards all the time. That's awesome. DN, do you want your card of the day? I can do it too. DN gets a free one because Diane is my manager. So thank you for everyone for coming into game today. Maybe I should just ask you guys, since you guys are here, right? I don't really want to like go on Twitter and ask for a poll and then nobody really choose for anything. Okay, I go and take the book. Okay, what I have here is two books. One is Kazuo Ishiguro's first novel ever that he has written in his life. I believe it's in 1982. Yep, 1982. And then, can I wait, Deanne, can I do I need to switch to mods, I think. I can do a poll, right, Deanne? I'm so bad at this shit. Hang on. Can I do a poll? Ah! Not poll, but like a prediction. But I'll use it as a poll. Which book should I read tomorrow? Kazuo Ishiguro, first novel. A pale view of the hill by the guest cat. Okay, you guys have 1 minute to decide for me. So one is Kazuo Ishiguro's first novel, A Pale Veil of the Hill, and another one is Takashi Hiraide's The Guest Cat. So you guys have 1 minute to help me choose. I mean, it's called a prediction right now, but nobody's choosing. Nobody's choosing. You guys just want me to choose, right? What's the result? Should I do it again? It's like you guys didn't click the thing. I'll give you all more time, okay? Alright, 2 minutes while I explain. Okay? So, A Pale Veil of Hill is Kazuo Ishiguro's first novel ever. It's it's about a Japanese woman living in England. The Guest Cat is by Takashi Hiraide. I don't think he is very famous, but it's about a couple who are freelance writers in Tokyo, and one day a cat just stumbled into their house. So, please, you can't predict in your region. What the hell? Do it, do it, do it. How can you have 0 points? You have been watching my channel for so long. Oh, that's sad. Okay, then. Okay, then. If you guys are listening, also hello East Yokai. That's the first time I ever seen you. I have 20 points on Pale View already. How many? Okay. Hello. Nice to meet you, East Yokai. Thank you so much. You get an ara ara just for you. Be prepared for this ara ara. Clip it if you want. 3, 2, 1. Ara ara is yokai-san. There you go. You got an ara ara. Thank you so much. 99 followers. One more. I hit 100. Hell yeah. Anyway, it seems that there are two. Okay. Oh my god. Where's my result? Where's the result? Can't even see the fucking result. The end. Help. Oh, the end. Since you have that thing, can you help me run a poll? Jesus Christ. Yeah, just run a poll for me, the end. I'm stupid when it comes to this. I'm sorry. Meanwhile, when you're running the poll, I'm going to read the end's card of the day. Okay, shuffle 5 times, cut 3 times, and then pick from. Jesus Christ, that's. Alright, cut of the day for the end. Shuffle 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I cut 3 times. 1, 2, 3. I lay on top, and then I spread it. The end's card of the day is Page of Cups, a very playful little thing. Cups usually means emotions, intuition, feelings, nurturing. Cups usually means like emotion stuff. Yeah. The end. Is the poll started already? So Page of Cups, Page is a very playful person, so that's totally what the end is. So, but okay, as your card of the day, right? Page of Cups, the keywords is naivety, sensitivity, immaturity, and the lack of boundaries. So what this means is that you are not there might be certain things today that happens that you should be a little bit more careful of because of how naive you see the world. It also can indicate your self-esteem issues. You have to look within yourself to find what's your purpose, instead of like looking for purpose in other people. So don't lean on other people too much. Be your own person more. Don't be too naive. Don't trust people too easily. If you are having any emotional issues, Page of Cups usually means that you are not mature enough to deal with your emotional issues. So you have to be very careful about trusting people or leaning your own emotional issues on other people too much, basically. So try to stand up for yourself a little bit more. Try to trust your own instinct a little bit more. Try to seek when you are stuck at somewhere or anything. Try to seek advice from the right people and not the wrong people. And it's difficult to do that because as the Page of Cup, you tend to trust people too easily. But try your best to trust your own instincts that the person that you're talking to, that you're seeking advice to, is a person that you can rely on. But at the same time, don't lean on them too much, because after all, you are your own person. So be as playful as you can. You are very naive, you are very immature, but you are very sensitive as well. But you need to draw a boundary and be yourself. Yeah. Oh, nice. Nuna will decide. Vote, everyone. There's 10 viewers. Come on. There are only 3 votes now. It's not fair. Oh no, everyone wants the cat book. It's because it's a cat, you guys. You guys like cats too much. In that case, I am going to read Pale View of the Hills after the cat book. Alright? No, I was a Mikote a long time ago, but I will never be a Mikote again. I was a Mikote. I played this game for 8 years. I have been a Mikote at least twice. But I will never be a Mikote again. Because my main race is Highlander. Elezen is just for fun for now. By the end of it, I'm going to go back to becoming a Highlander. Yeah, I guess it's the Meow Meow book, yeah? Okay, the guest cat, it is! It's already winning by a landslide. Jesus. Nah, the end said lava fell for life. Okay. Kitty book. Alright, the cat book won. Okay, tomorrow we will be reading The Gas Cat by Takashi Hiraide. Okay, apparently it is the Sunday Times top 10 bestseller, and I personally really like this book. It's really good. I really like it, so I don't mind sharing it with you all. And I shall read it tomorrow. Okay. Right, it's time for lunch for me and everyone else. The end, your card of the day, Page of Cups. Don't trust people too easily. Don't lean on other people too much for your emotional things. Try to
Have you ever had a dream that you could don't you want to don't
Exia knows how to make an exit. Yeah. Hell yeah. Alright guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Why is it that there are 12 viewers? Anyone who has not followed now, you have a chance to be my 100 ara ara. I'm gonna give it another 3 minutes before I switch off the stream. One ara ara for one follow. Come on. Let me hit 100 today and make my day. Oh my god. I'm so greedy. Like, I don't need you to sub. But you know what? Give me the follows. The follows are very nice. Alright? Okay, if you don't know, for new viewers who do not know what the fuck I'm doing, sorry, I also cuss a lot. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday morning at 11 a.m. GMT plus 8, I read books to people in game through my Twitch channel, which is what you are here right now for. From 11 a.m. onwards, I try to cut it off at 2 hours point, which ends at 1 p.m. But because today we are at the end of the book, so I decided to run over the time. But it's fine. I'm having fun. You guys are having fun, right? So yeah, I'll try to let you guys choose books that you guys want me to read and stuff like that. Anyway, hell yeah, you guys are awesome. Thank you for hanging out with me the entire morning. Thank you for being here with me and just listening to me read. And I will be seeing you all tomorrow morning at the same time. Please come by and listen, please. We are reading Takashi Hiraide's The Guest Cat tomorrow. I shall make a poster and an announcement tomorrow, later today, to remind you all. No, thank you for attending. Thank you. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you. I'm seriously thankful for everyone's follow, everyone's sub, especially Twisty. Twisty is the only one who sub for everything, for everyone basically. Thank you for Bit for subbing for yeah, hell yeah. Twisty gets to use the cat emoji because he's a tier 1 subber, I think. Hell yeah. Super special, huh? Alrighty. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great day. Have a great Thursday. Work hard, study hard. If it's evening where you are, sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite. Have a good day. I love you all. Mwah.